Pajuri Gamarua. G'day in the local language. My name's Nathan Moran. I'll be facilitating today. Today we've got a gathering of deadly voices speaking about deadly topics. Apologies for the late start, but we're going to get underway now. We're going to talk about sovereignty first, about a core issue in our communities that remains. I want to acknowledge all the panellists today. We'll have up to an hour together. Each panellist will get a chance to introduce themselves, a bit about their background, actions that they're doing in the area of sovereignty, and then at the end we'll have a Q&A. So just be patient with us. We'll get through to the end and then we'll get a chance to ask questions and answers. But I'll kick off with Uncle Joe and we'll get through today. Thank you. You should be live now.
Yo. Yeah, my name is Lurnpa, TJambatjimba, David Cole. I'm born and bred in Darwin, descend from the Prudhomme and Wunggu tribes in Central Desert, and I'll let my uncle introduce himself. Just tell him who you are, where you're from.
Hello, Sydney. I'm from Alice Spring, but you know, west of Alice Spring, there's the place called Kintor, near WF Water. But I'm willing to see you, Sydney community and city people. Yes, I'm willing to see you, Marv. Now, all right.
Hello. Watermully. My name is Gurridyula. I'm from Watego in central Queensland. Been living out in the bush on a coal mine, on the northern section of a coal mine for about 1,614 days today. Out in the middle, the closest town. Thank you. The closest town is about three hours drive away, so the luxuries of life are a little bit further away than what most people are used to. And so I got out of the bush. Luckily, I got out of the floodwaters to be able to get here today. And, shout out to all the Gurridyula elders, past, present. Thanks for inviting us here today. And, yeah, I'll pass you on.
May God's peace be upon you. In the almighty name of Yeshua, Jesus. I'm Murrumu. Saint Murrumu is my title. I'm not perfect, but I put saint in there because I believe we are sons and daughters of the Most High, and we are created in His image. And when we talk about sovereignty, there's two sides of it. There's the spiritual side of sovereignty, and then there's the administrative side of sovereignty. I talk mainly about administrative side, but I can talk about spiritual law as well. And I'm also the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade for the Yidinji government. I also hold office for the Minister for Financial Technology, Minister for Communications and Broadband and Renewable Energy. And I'll be talking mainly about our office and our government and how it works.
All right. So you'll hear today from a range of speakers, one missing in the chair, just to explain. Chelsea Watego, Professor, she'll be joining us later throughout the panel, and if not, we'll have her this evening. But first of all, we might try and talk a bit more about what's happening at home with yourself in regards to sovereignty, what's going on up there, what actions you can share with us, and then any learnings you can share with us.
We're a part of the Pindabi Wari-Jura Jungarinji, which is our senior law council. My Uncle Joe here is our senior law holder for that council and our senior cultural leader. He's a very special man. He's not just a treasure to this country, he's a treasure to humanity. And our council is made up of between 15 to 20 senior elders, just like Joe, that are not only our knowledge holders, but they are our leaders. I'm an ambassador for our Wadi Council, but I'm led by great wisdom like this great man sitting next to me. So everything we do with our council is driven by our Elders Council, and that also includes the women. So the women have their council, and our men and our women, they communicate together to make decisions on what we're doing as a nation with our Wadi Council. So we've formulated our council over the last 5-6 years, and we're now in the process of, we're doing a bit of catch-up. Yidinji's done some amazing work around their governance. We've been tying it up at the cultural end, and now we're stepping into that process of establishing good governance to be able to self-govern our own affairs and move forward and make decisions that are in the best interest of the nation. So it's a very slow process because we have a lot of elders across a landmass the size of Germany that we've got to traverse just to get decisions made. So if we have to go and have a conversation with several elders, we've got about a 3,000 kilometre round trip just on his country to be able to traverse to get decisions made. So nothing's rushed, everything's done carefully, but we're in a stage where now we're starting to reach out to other tribal groups, and we're starting to establish our tribe-to-tribe treaties. Those treaties already exist. They exist from ancient millennia time under our Jukurba, under our law. So every tribe across this country is already connected under our law from the beginning of time. We're just formulating that in the new time so people can see our friendships, our relationships that we're forming, and we're slowly reaching out and formulating treaties, not just with tribes here, but we're formulating treaties with tribes across the country, the planet as well. So we've done a treaty with the Philippines. 110 bloodline tribes in the Philippines have signed a treaty with the Pindabi in the middle of Australia. So we are reaching out not only to tribes here but around the world, because it's time that we bring Mother Earth back into balance. It's time that we look after the water, the air, the land. And when we look at the ancient knowledges of the planet, all ancient knowledges, including the ancient tribes in Europe, they were all looking after Mother Earth once. So we are working together to unite the tribes here and across the planet to come back to taking care of Mother Earth, because that's our responsibility for the children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. We have to make sure we leave a healthy planet. So our focus is getting it right in the desert, reaching out, working together, and we're really excited because our council is the highest level of authority that you can hold on this land. And we have a very, very strong council that's making really, really positive decisions. And just like my uncle here taught me, in our law, we must all rise up or all stay down. Not one up and the rest stay down. We must work together to bring everybody up, and that's the law. So we're not only doing that with the Pindabi tribe, but we're working really, really hard to share what we're doing and to learn. I learn from my brother here, my two brothers. We learn from each other all the time. We learn from what each other's doing, and we share knowledge, we share information, and we're just trying to step into the strongest space we can to take our self-determination, because quite frankly, if we don't, we're going to lose it all, and we're losing it rapidly. So time's against us, and we're working as hard as we can. There is no resources. Everything we do, it's all out of love and passion for our culture, for our people, for the land, and for the children. So we're just powering along with Pindabi, and we're working with all the other tribes, and we look forward to reaching out to the Australian people in the near future and asking you to walk with us as well. Because the reality is we can't do it without you, and you can't do it without us. And if we're going to create a healthy future, it's going to require unity. My father was Mr. Gurridyula, the Yidaki master from Northeast Arnhem Land. And before he passed, he gave me a very hard task, which was, he said, you need to unite all the tribes. And after you unite the tribes, you need to unite the tribes with the rest of Australia. And we need to take back our power, and we need to protect the water, the land, for the future generations. And that's a responsibility that we all hold. And I share that story with you because that responsibility is yours as well. You have children, grandchildren. They're our responsibility. What we leave them is our responsibility in this time. We're here for but a short time, so I'm very proud to bring Uncle Joe here because he's not only our senior cultural leader, but he's a national treasure and a very special man. So bringing him here to introduce him to you is a pleasure. And I'll just check if Uncle wants to say anything, and then I'm going to pass it on to my bros. Would you like to say anything? No? He'll talk after. But yeah, I'm going to hand you over to Cody.
Hey, which one we got? Alrighty. Okay. It's funny, you know, because his adopted father, Gurridyula, their sons adopted me and their brother as well, so we're brothers in the same family. And, you know, my quest when I first started going out to country, I did it in anger. I did it in anger because inside of me, I've had injustices happen to my family by this government, and I felt like I needed to right those wrongs in any way possible that I could. And while sitting there, you know, I lit this fire out in the middle of the bush, and it's directly opposite this big coal pit, and there's massive big high wall directly opposite where I am with this fire. And I sat down and I lit this fire, and we had 3 rules. One is the fire always has to stay lit. Number 2, there's no Miglu objects, no foreign objects inside the circle. And number 3, we had to have one of our clan group in that circle at all times. Rain, hail or shine, we had one family member inside that circle on the top of the hill for 408 days. Rain, hail, shine. I sat through 200 mils of rain on 26th of January, the first 26th of January when we got there. And I thought to myself, what am I doing this for? Why am I sitting in the rain trying to sit next to a fire and make sure it doesn't go out? Because it quickly dawned on me that many Aboriginal people across this country are relying on that fire too, because it keeps them alive. It lets them know that out of all the destruction that's happening around us right now in this country, they can still see that somebody is still making a headwave, that somebody is still creating a path that isn't what the government told us what our path was. And so through that process, I began to realize that I was starting to heal my trauma. And nearly every Aboriginal person that you talk to will have some traumatic experience of what happened to their family. And so every Aboriginal person is carrying around this trauma with them. And the one way that I was able to help fix that trauma was to go back to country and sit next to a fire. And I started to realize that that anger inside of me just started to die down. And I started to understand compassion, because I was there, and I started to begin to realize that I can't use violence to fight this government. Aboriginal people could never use violence to fight this government, because this government is made up of some of the most savage people that have ever walked this earth, that they have done to every single Indigenous people around the world what happens when you try to fight back with violence. So you fight back with compassion, and you fight back with resilience to say, I'm not going anywhere. I sat down here by this fire, and I'll continue to sit down here by this fire, because you can't stop me from sitting by my fire. We've seen it for ourselves in the 10 Embassy, when the 10 Embassy first got up. How is that fire still running? It's the world's longest protest. Because they set up and nobody can interrupt that Aboriginal person sitting next to a fire. And then through that process, I started to realize that, well, I'm not even just doing this for my family anymore. I'm doing this for the 27,000 hectares of land that is there, with untouched trees that have been there that still have my old people's placentas still in them. When we cut the tree, when the sunrise come up, we put it into the tree of where the sunrise come up, so we know when that child's birthday is. So we know a calendar of what exact day of the year it is from all the birthing trees that we have there. And so that's our right to come home and reconnect back into earth. And so we've got our nieces and nephews, placentas, and we put them back into the trees along with all the other trees. We've completed the circuit and come back around again and planted the seeds back into the ground for them to flourish, because that baby's essence goes down into the trees, down into the roots, and then we burn off, and then those little truffles grow from the roots, and then the little kangaroo rat comes along, picks up those truffles, takes that baby along everywhere, all around the area, connects that baby back into country that was taken from us to be able to connect back into country. It's the most simplest ideology that you could ever have, because you get it from nature. The epiphanies that I have had from sitting in the bush has come from sitting in the bush. Not having TV, not having any of those distractions, and just sitting there and contemplating, because there's a scientific name for this, and it's called epigenetics. It means there's things written in my DNA that there's answers inside of me that I can only access when it gets into certain situations. And I feel like when I'm sitting by this fire, I have the ability to access back into this genetic information and what it is to be. And that's all it is, to be. And that's where sovereignty doesn't come from. There is no sovereign citizens. And don't get it twisted between Aboriginal sovereignty and sovereign citizens. They're two separate things. Sovereign citizens are police killing right-wing extremists. And then you have sovereignty. But for me, my idea of sovereignty is the water. The water is the ultimate creator, because everything is made of water. Everything is made of water. If we know that it's the creator, because there's one thing that we can't make. We can make anything on this earth, but we can't make water. We know how it's made. We can't smash two bits of hydrogen and oxygen together to make the water. So we know it's our creator. We're all got it in us at the same time. It's all omnipresent. You drink water out of the river, you're part of the Walubara, the river dreaming. How everyone who has ever lived in this whole world has all lived next to a river. And you've drank from that river. And then you've gone to the toilet, and those molecules of you have come out, and they go into the river, and they go down into the ocean, back up into the clouds, back out to the mountains, back down into the rivers again. That's the Walubara, the river dreaming. And it keeps happening over and over again. And that's how every human around the world is all connected. And I come up with that sitting in the bush. And so that's what the ability that Indigenous people need, that ability to go back to the bush, to be able to heal by going, well, if I can heal, then I can then teach other people how to heal as well. And it doesn't come from me just sitting in front of a therapist and trying to figure out what my life is, when I know realizing that this concrete scrub here is not the life that I'm supposed to live. That the life I'm supposed to live is out on country, protecting my totemic animals, my Gurridyula, the wedge-tailed eagles, protecting the gundulu, the emu, the law. And so these things are more important than having a career. And these things are being lost at a massive rate for many Aboriginal people across the country. And, you can't heal if you can't heal. You can't expect someone then to heal as well if they don't have the ability to heal. And if they don't know how to heal themselves because they can't get back out on country, then are they ever going to really heal? So we've got a whole bunch of traumatized people that have been traumatized that haven't got the ability to just be. And so being out on country, that's what it's dawned on me. And what's dawned on me is country is number one important out of everything. And if that's not savored and protected now, then in the next 7 generations, they're going to blame me that I didn't stand up and do something about it. At least I can say to the generations ahead that at least I stood up and at least I gave it 100%, and I dedicated 100% of my life to fighting for something for everybody else's future generation. Even if they don't care, one day their grandchildren will thank us for standing up and stopping this government from stealing everything and destroying every river, because they're in the processes of it right now. You know, 85% of Queensland is cleared for beef. All of that poison from all the E. coli from the things are going into the rivers, and our rivers are being destroyed at an alarming rate that someone needs to stand up and go, sorry, we're not going to let you do this anymore, because you might not have a responsibility to the future generations, but we got a responsibility to the future generations, you know. I don't have a word for it in my language, but Yulungu call it jungaya, custodian. And they're custodian. If you're a custodian of somewhere, then they have the responsibility. Like we're the custodians of Dungulbula Springs. That spring's been running since the dawn of time. And it's sacred. And sacred water is water that hasn't been a part of the Bulbara Bidget and the River Dreaming. It's the stuff that comes straight out of the ground. No human molecules in it. That's why it's sacred. Because no human has ever touched it. And when you drink it, it's the first human that's ever drank that water. And that's what we have out there. We have ancient water that's being pumped out of the Great Artesian Basin. And at the moment, it's being poisoned by the mining company. So I'm there at the moment to try and stop them from at least destroying the northern section. That's a lot of where the soaks are for the Great Artesian Basin. So it's a very ecologically important place too. It's the crossroads of the western, of the desert and of the east coast as well, right on the Great Dividing Range. And, you know, country brought me to that area. I call it the river. I follow the river and it just takes me in the stream. You know how they say go with the flow? That's literally what it is. And I've just been following that all along and been out there 1,614 days. And just to prove to myself, to prove to the government, and also to prove to everybody else. One, to prove to the right-wing extremists that try to tell me that I've been conquered. Because if I've been conquered, how could I last 1,600 days in the bush and not one court case has been launched against me, because they have no concrete evidence of who owns the land. So they're like, well, I guess we'll just miss this one. So I haven't been conquered. And so, but it's also a thing to Aboriginal people that not everything is lost. You can still fight for your homelands and the protection of your totemic animals. Because what's the point in having a totem if you can't protect it? Why can't you protect its homelands? This is the whole thing, you know. It's not just about having the animal, it's protecting the animal's environment as well. To make sure that animal, if you do come back, if you believe in reincarnation, and I believe that I'm coming back as that animal, then I want to make that animal, I want to make that space nice for that animal. That's my intentions. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. I use the Bible for a lot of things with that, and be still and know that I am God comes to mind when brother was having these memories or visions, whatever you want to call them. You've got a really good panel here in terms of like lawmen, culturemen, and in Yidinji that's called Jarnala Yidinji. That's the Council of Elders. That's above where I sit. And so I'm sort of like the black sheep of the panels usually, because I'm more about office work. I'm office man, they culture law man, you know what I mean? So I'm more about Times New Roman font 12 point, getting the business out there. The reason why I say that is because when Captain Cook came past, he came as an officer of the British Crown. So he was looking for a Yidinji office to walk into and get a seal and stamp and a visa and all that kind of stuff. So the sovereignty that's here, we already know the mobs and the territories and even some of the stories that are shared and whatnot. So we know the law is there, but is it codified? Is it in a way or in a format that the rest of the world can see? Because Resolution 1514, Australia agreed to decolonise. So it has to have its whatever it is, the remnants of a European beginning removed from the country. But where did they decolonise, or how did it decolonise? So my job is to go around and encourage people to consider how to set up an administrative government or council to facilitate that mechanism and create that mechanism. So, for example, I don't have any Australian ID because the only ID is the Yidinji one, which is created subject to our constitution and our law, and that's it. I jump on a plane with that. I've spoken at the World Economic Forums, a couple of them with this ID, and I tell them what we're doing. I tell the whole world what we're doing. So it doesn't matter if it's where for the mob down the road, or this is what we do, and this is our office, this is our law. Today's a wonderful day to celebrate. January 26 is really important. You know, I know people have differing opinions, but for us, it's our Yidinji National Banking Day. And 4 years ago, we launched the first ever Indigenous central bank digital currency and digital ID. We beat Russia, we beat China, we beat America, we beat Australia, we beat everyone to it. And we are making really good inroads to developing a digital nation where sovereignty can be invisible, but allow our people to, and others, to administrate their territory without too much changing everything. I think people are a little bit frightened from sovereignty, and when they hear about the sovereign citizen movement, those guys are crazy. They're a threat to us, and they're a threat to the Commonwealth of Australia. They want to be outside of the law, outlaws. So if they're not under Australian law or under Yidinji law, then we're saying, well, whose law are you on? Which mob are you from? Oh, we're under Magna Carta. This, sorry, that goes go back to where that came from. So I think that's really important. One, we have our own stamps that we send to the international community. I've Zoomed with a president who got kidnapped the other week, a few years ago now, but we have international relationships with a number of UN member states. So it's because Australia signed under it, which is the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, they put their signature to it, saying that Indigenous peoples have a right to self-determination, self-government, whatever it may be, and they have a right to participate inside of Australia if they so choose. But we don't choose to do that up there. But that doesn't mean everyone doesn't participate in Australia, but someone has to sit in that office, and unfortunately it's me, helping create the Yidinji paperwork, the Yidinji office, the Yidinji stamps, the Yidinji legislation, the public notices that go out to the rest of the world. So I think that's where we encourage people to look at the law and how you can use that and codify it to let the international community know who you are, how you operate, and basically it's not too crazy from the written stuff. So most people in Australia on our territory can become Yidinji citizens. It costs nothing. And, you know, I think we have 300 Yidinji citizens, and we're building it stronger and stronger. So, I mean, that's where I can sort of talk about those things. But these other ones are really important because there is that long-standing connection to country where Australia has absolutely no doctrine for claims of sovereignty. We know that even the lawyers and the judiciary are. You know, in the opening of the law ceremony in Cairns, Gimo we call it, the Supreme Court has our national flag flying up there by itself. No Australian flags on that pole, it's right in the middle. Because we grant them permission to open up that court. So it's very important. One thing to, which I say, you know, we know that we own the land, but acting like we own the land is a new game for us to get involved with. We've been doing it for about 11 years or more now, and every day is exciting, every year is exciting for us because we're pushing it further and further and further. So I'm happy to answer questions or keep talking about that during the panel. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, panel. Thank you so much for sharing your journeys, experiences. More importantly, to share with you as a public about what's going on. Localised actions, activities for sovereignty, be it from what we know today as the NT or Queensland. On the acknowledge button now myself, I do have a day job. I very much like Murrumu have to do paperwork. I'm the CEO of the local Aboriginal Land Council here in Sydney. It's known as Metro Local Aboriginal Land Council. But I'm a Biripi and Thungati. The last, my Thungati heritage, to acknowledge we're the first native title holders of Australia. We were forced in 1996, after the passing of the legislation, thanks to Eddie Mabo and the great fight that he won, and acknowledged the great man who just passed recently from this area, a Wiradjuri man, Mr Paul Coe. Uncle Paul was our first to put a sovereignty case in New South Wales as a nation. He led Wiradjuri in 1977. The Land Council that I work for, he helped establish. Indeed, the same year he moved that case, he was part of establishing land rights. We were part of seeking out a national movement for all of our people. That goes back to 1938, and acknowledged that today, on the 26th of January, thereabouts at 5 p.m. in 1938, our mob held the first all-Aboriginal conference. It's also known as the first human rights protest. We put out a 10-point plan. That plan's still relevant today. For those who aren't aware, I'd suggest please have a look at what we set out in 1938 about trying to seek out rights for our people. Prior to that, this area is very rich, acknowledging where we're on Gadigal country and the surrounding clans, be they Bidjigal to the south, over the north, the Gamaragal or the Wunggu to the west, and the Ganagal to the far east. This is an area of resistance. We go back and we acknowledge Arabanu, our first kidnapped fella from this lands, who died in custody. They named the town of Manly after him, but that's the realities of our contact. Certainly want to acknowledge who's buried beside him is Barangaroo and the resistance of our females. For those who aren't aware, Barangaroo was the leader, of course, of the Gamaragal, the North Shore people. She's more known for choosing a husband. That husband got a bit more famous than her. But her actions, her leadership as a female, as a leader, is forever more paramount in what we acknowledge today as our fight for sovereignty. She was asked to meet the governor with her then husband, Benelong. She did. She dressed appropriately. She drew, of course, on her culture. Unlike her husband, who wore the regalia of the colony, she wore traditional body art. She walked into the governor's colony to have that first sit down. We've been representing that respectful acknowledgement of who we are from day one, and I just hope people have got a bit more appreciation of our battle for sovereignty, for rights and respect. From first contact beyond, many more of you, I'm sure, are aware of Pemaway. Barangaroo's offsider was Mosquito, a great warrior so great they sent him down to the Palawa people in Tasmania. He led them in resistance, so they sent him to Victoria, to Koori country, to Kulin Nation. He was hung in Port Phillip. A great warrior of the Gamaragal, who what the colony called was a terrorist, who wouldn't allow him to rest, to occupy his lands. His cousin and kin, of course, is Pemaway in the south, from the Bidjigal. This is an area ripe with resistance and fighting for sovereignty. The last point is recorded in 1836 in colonial records. A local fellow of the Eora known Bummaree or Boomaree. He told the court, I do not answer to you, I answer to my law. So we've got a long history in standing up for our rights, be it right up to most recently what you're hearing now or since contact. And I hope that throughout today and maybe even later today, you'll get a chance to hear some more. We're going to throw the questions and answers to the floor now for any of you who'd like to ask. I think we've got about 10 spare, so just be mindful of questions, please. Be respectful, but we will open it up for questions and answers now. You all right, you fellas? Let's do it. Anyone like to kick us off? Any standouts, fast hands? I'll do my best to try and capture you. See if my eyes have got it. Any fast hands? No questions? One. Got your brother in red. Just bear with me. I'll walk it over to you, brother.
I'm just interested to hear more about the treaties amongst other Indigenous groups and clans and internationally, and how that's going, and what's the maybe the long-term benefit, the plan, and how's it going to change things? Because to me it sounds instinctively right, and I want to support it, and I want to understand and hear more about it.
Yo, the short answer is 2/3 of the planet was invaded by the Spanish and the English. That's 2/3 of the planet of Indigenous nations. We've put out our treaty to all tribal nations of the planet. We have 53 bloodline African kingdoms that are looking at signing it. We have just signed a treaty last week with the American Indian nations. And we're all going to meet in March somewhere on the planet. And we're all coming together to have a discussion about our self-determination, working together. And when 2/3 of the planet are bringing the protection of Mother Earth back under Indigenous knowledge, then we have hope for our future generations. So that's the intention, that's the hope. We've not planned any of this, it's just happened organically. And at some point we have to remember that under the international laws of maximum law, it's first in time, right at law. So the first law of a land cannot be superseded by any new law. And the English knew that when they came here. That's why Resolution 2625/25 was passed in October 1969 at the United Nations, adopted in 1971, which required a speedy decolonisation of the entire planet. And that's why Australia was supposed to hand it back in 73. That's why the Crown left here in 73. Right? All they left behind was an administration body that was supposed to do the right thing. They haven't. They registered it as a corporation. They've been running as a corporation under the US government ever since, and we have been under that occupation. So we are not a sovereign nation. The tribal people are sovereign people. Everyone else here, we're homeless. So we have a chance here to unite. We have 27 million plus on this continent, and we have a chance to come together to stand under the true law of this land, because if we continue under this corporation that's impersonating a government, everyone else is slowly finding out what we've been crying out for 234 years, because the genocide hasn't stopped. My grandmother, I got light skin because I was a part of the White Australia policy. They stole my grandmother in order to take the colour out of me. What they didn't count on was the spirit and the blood staying black. Okay, I'm rooted in my culture, I'm rooted in the ground. Our children are being stolen at a higher rate now than the stolen generation years. Right now, we are 85% of the child protection numbers, and we're 3% of the population. Nationally, we're around 28% of the prison population, and we're 3% of the national population. Every statistic that we represent is in the high 80s to 100 for everything. In the territory, we are 95% of the adult prison population. We're 100% of the juvenile prison population, but we're only 36% of the population. So it's either that we're intrinsically criminals, or we have a racist system that's making sure that we end up in jail, our children get taken, and we're being genocided right before Australia's eyes. So we have to stop dodging the truth. If we're going to have reconciliation, it can't be in colourful hands in the ground. It's got to be in yous walking with us to allow for us to self-determine what's best for us. Because we can look after our children. We can look after our people. We're never given the right or the ability. When you have a $35 billion industry and less than $1 billion's hitting the cold front, and out of that billion, governments, NGOs, private enterprises are taking all that resource, I can assure you, out of the $38 billion that they spruce to you, that they give to tribal people, I can assure you that less than 5% of that's hitting the ground. And I ran a suicide prevention program for 20 years, and we never ever got more than 5% of what we needed to keep our children alive. And when we exposed child abuse in the system, they cut our program. So we're up against a system that doesn't want to see tribal people take their rightful place. Joh Bjelke-Petersen said this: be very careful allowing the Aboriginals to rise up, because they'll become the next Arab. And the second Prime Minister of Australia said, be very careful stealing these children, because the light-skinned blackfellow will be the one who comes back to reclaim their land. Well, that time's arrived. The knowledge is there. We can't live in ignorance anymore, no matter who you are, where you're from. It's time to reconcile with yourselves. It's time to reconcile with the truth. And it's time to stand with the truth and allow for the tribal people of this land to take back our autonomy, our self-determination, and fix what's been caused from 274 years of well-entrenched genocide.
Anyone want to speak further to that one? We'll wait for another one. Yep.
I think the treaties are really important. Once again, those tribal agreements and treaties between lawmen and peers or members of a society are above the government that I'm talking about today. However, once the peerage or the members of a society form a council or their governance structure, that's where the Yidinji government, for example, puts that and codifies those treaties for the international community to see, because otherwise sometimes it's a message stick, or there's other ceremonial things that happen at that top level, the same way that Charles and everyone would do similar things with the royals in Europe. I think the other important thing too is that when you have a government, you don't you start to not worry about. You can start your treasury, you can start your own Bills of Exchange Act, your Finance Act, and all these things, the Reserve Bank Act, and start to actually create that law that allows you to do that in your world. And that's where those treaties are really important, from whether it's a police powers sharing agreement with these guys if they have police or whatnot, or what's the value of their dollar with the Yidinji dollar, the SID, the sovereign Yidinji dollar, for example. That's where we're coming in from that level. And how do you harmonise that? How does, if one of brothers' sisters married a Yidinji man, and what happens to the dispute resolution with the custodialship over the children? What laws that come under, or is it coming under some sort of mediation process that's government-based, for example? So the letter of the law is really important in some places, and that's where we're encouraging that. And the Bible's really good because it's case law. One of the great things is, Moses writes to the people of Israel, if you're going to appoint a king over you, make sure he's not a foreigner. So is Charles one of your mob? He's not Yidinji. So we're saying we can't have a king over us that's not from us. So, sorry, using the book that you've got in every courtroom, we're saying if that's the law, then I'm sorry, Charles, you can't be king for Yidinji. So it's really using that case law, and even Israel's journey to sovereignty, whatever you think about Israel, I support their sovereignty. But, when you look at what we're doing and maybe the state of Israel and how they're doing things, ours is very different. Our police don't even carry weapons or firearms. It's just the truth. And that's a beautiful thing. That's the greatest thing that we've got. We don't need to be like that. We have every right to self-defence and all those things, but we know the price of peace on this continent. And, and sitting around a campfire and give a good yarn and sharing and all that stuff. And that's why Australia is relatively, I think, the violence is from a colonial past, because everything else was strong. The law was strong here. It was harmonious. Dispute resolution was dealt with very, very quickly. You're either isolated or even killed for doing stupid stuff. And unfortunately, lawlessness has been allowed to manifest, and it's now time for the tribes to actually take control of that. And having the culture and the law is there. It's already, because the sovereignty has never been ceded. It's the administration of that and how you express that to the rest of the world to say, we are now ready to administrate our territory, and Australia and everyone else has agreed to bring a speedy end to any manifestation of colonisation, and we're ready for that. However, what we're saying is we protect the Commonwealth of Australia, so all of you guys can enjoy what is here on our territory, up there that is, so it's not too foreign, and it's not like a hostile takeover or some sort of power vacuum where things can go nasty and wrong around the other parts of the world. You see that decolonisation transfer. There's a lot of stuff going on around the world even now as a result of that. So we're trying to do it in a way we're showing the international community, one, through peaceful means and using the letter of the law and the sovereignty that is amongst the peers here and all the other mobs that are represented here today.
I just wanted to finish on a quick story. You mentioned Charles. So our father, Mr. Gurridyula, his father went to England when Elizabeth was 23 or something, and they had a private meeting in a private room. And when royalty meets anybody, they leave on their gloves if you're lesser. They take off one glove if you're equal. They remove both gloves if you're superior. When she met with Murrumu, she took off both her gloves in a private meeting and she gifted him a sword. And when she gifted him the sword, she said, unite your people and take it all back. It's all yours. So Charles came out here during the Commonwealth Games and flew to Nhulunbuy to sit with my father to get a healing, a Yidaki healing from him. And during that ceremony, he asked my father, Mr. Gurridyula, for forgiveness. And my father said, no. You will not be forgiven until you right the wrongs. And he didn't give him a Yidaki healing. He didn't heal him. He reset him. And he made it very clear. I reset him and I didn't forgive him until they fixed the wrongs. Now, we are extending a treaty, not to the corporate government, we're extending a treaty to the Australian people. Because if we don't work together, we're all in a bad place. So this is not just about unity for the tribes, it's about unity for us as human beings. Because this is a long slug, we're up against a corporate beast that doesn't have the best interests of any of us. So we're not just reaching out to our tribal brothers, we're reaching out to all our tribal brothers of every race, of every culture, and our treaty is extended to you, the people, not to the corporate government. And we want to look after the people. And together we want to create something strong under our law, because the way we've set up our governance is we've set it up under our ancient law. And as you come down the chain, then we move into more the Westminster structure of getting jobs done, building roads, putting a pole in or whatever. But at the top, we are governed by our ancient law. And when you're governed under that ancient law, there is no room for corruption, fraud, treason, or nepotism. So the Wadi Council, the Pindabi Wadi Council, we are strictly operating under our law only, and that's why we're progressing in a positive way and getting things set up across the entire nation, and we have the support of 100% of our tribal members.
Oh, yeah, but... Oh, yeah, no, look, just about the treaties and stuff like that, you know, like I think treaties amongst tribes and stuff like that is really all just formal recognition and stuff like that. At this point in time, Waitanungu won't be asking for any treaties with the Australian government, only because the treaty entails terms and conditions. And at this point in time, leaving it in a legal conundrum is almost better than having a treaty, because if they're never coming to take it, then they're never going to take it. So I guess I'm happy to stay in that legal conundrum than having an actual formal treaty that, you know, can be, you know, used against me or something later on in life, or what we see in the Māori people at the moment in Aotearoa having to still defend the treaty after, you know, 150 years or so. So, you know, yeah.
Thank you. I was just thinking about your statement about corruption, and of course, corruption for Aboriginal people is probably our number one enemy. It's a very evil entity. People, you know, what happens behind closed doors, big deals are made, and we've kind of been the butt of that since day dot. In relation to sovereignty and our emerging sovereign processes, but also our long-standing sovereign existence, essentially on a cellular level, with a cellular relationship with the soil and the environment for 80,000 years. Where do we stand on corruption in our own organisations? And what might we be able to do under our developing sovereign existence through an emerging sort of government process? What can we do? Is that something that we as a people are wanting to deal with?
No worries. Absolutely. We have to deal with it, and if we don't, we're going to fall over like everything else, right? Because corruption is the root of all evil. It just eats at everything from the inside out. That's why we stand with our Wadi Council under our law. you can't be corrupt under our law. Everything's in the middle and everybody can see you. If you step out of line under our law, you will be seen and you will be called out and you will be punished. So the only way we can avoid corruption was never a part of our society. Neither was child abuse or anything like that. All of those illnesses were introduced to us by those who came here. So we have to step away from the corrupt systems that they've indoctrinated us into, and most of our corporations are. I'm not going to dodge it, okay? There is corruption at every level. Doesn't matter if it's black, white, or whoever is doing it, it is there. And once you step into the government's part, between that and our organisations, it's always corrupt, right? Because the system's just rotten. I mean, if it wasn't, we'd be healthy, all of us. So we're standing under our law to clean out the corruption, and there's just no room for it. That's what our council's doing.
Yeah, look, I think it just all really comes down to greed, you know, greed of not participating in a functioning community as you should, you know, because in a functioning community and running well, there shouldn't be those greedy people that are, you know, whether it's nepotism or whatever it is, you know, it really comes down to greed and how you address that as a group, you know, in having the standards on what your group says, okay, we're not going to deal with this type of stuff, you know, and I feel like it's a learned, like Lurnpa was saying, it's a learned trait, you know, you learn to be greedy as a child, you know, so it's kind of like addressing those situations to kind of like mitigate those problems right from the start to try and to weed out those type of people.
Yeah, it's a great question because, you know, we look at that all the time in terms of why are we creating something like a government when there's a danger of just reproducing what's happening already, right? So this is a very good question. So we look at proceeds of crime, acts, legislation, anti-money laundering, financing terrorism, laws with our money, sovereign unity dollars, guilt-free money, by the way. There's no blood on our money. But, you know, for the love of money is the root of all evil. So even then, if Yidinji was fully functioning, there has to be some sort of mechanism to stop that from happening. So, for example, with the collapse of Soviet Russia, they changed the name from the USSR to the Commonwealth of Independent States, I think it was. Then now it's the Russian Federation. So the same way that happens, the elders and the tribal council can say, no, we're going to destroy that. We're going to create a new one now because the trust is broken. You broken. There's too much going this way and it's not working for us, which is what Australia is sort of operating like, right? You know, not that I'm an Australian, I don't want to speak out of school here, but all I'm saying is you can see those issues and they're very important. So I think keeping it simple and transparent, our government's pretty good like that, but doesn't mean it's going to be, you know, if it's man-made law, then man's going to benefit too. Like, you know, brown paper bag, here, brother, here's some kangaroo or dugong, whatever. So that can happen, but to have those things in place to limit that or the risk of that happening is very important. But that's where we come from. It like we know how much is in our treasury. We've got $10 million out there because we have a treasury note with $10 million sovereign unity dollars on there, right? So we know that that's all there is at the moment. I can't create a new batch and put it on because it's on the blockchain and everyone can see it in the future. So if people are hiding things or they're concealing stuff, the Great Spirit has a good way of exposing people when they're lying and doing all that stuff. So, yeah.
We'll have one more question before we close out. On that question, what a deadly question, sis. Working in land rights now, I've been in the role 13 years. So it's local land councils, and certainly I'll talk about native title bodies, PCBs. But local land councils are required to do annual audits. Those audits are available to the public. They must be presented to their members. We do auditing to the international accounting standards in New South Wales land rights. They report better and above the New South Wales government. So people aren't aware in land rights, they report like a jellyfish. They're so open, they're transparent. Our members get our annual financials. The board get financials read monthly. We're on top of every payment that come in and come out. but corruption's got to be addressed. It's a learned behaviour. And that learning, I would suggest, in my experience as a child of the 70s, is about attrition. Learning those who can read and write, getting the right people into those areas, and we're finally there now in a generation into our system of land rights in New South Wales seeing it. That mob are more articulate, they're more likely to be academic, but more importantly can add up, read, write and comprehend is starting to occur. But I acknowledge we've got to deal with those first learners who didn't make things always from corruption or evil, they made errors. But there's always going to be in our culture, I'm a Gurri, in our laws of Kapara, yeah, we'd have a circle, you get in the middle and you cop your justice. Today, unfortunately, they just put your name on the internet and embarrass you by putting up that you're a fraud or maybe send you to jail. I'd say our greatest challenge is merging our culture, the need for actual punishment to occur, that's known, verified, seen and heard, versus today's world where most people just cop a fine. Very rarely are they going to jail for ripping us off, but corruption's got to be addressed. I'm just proud it's a very small part of our community today. And I can say that for native title as well. As Dunghutti, we put in annual reports through PCBs to ORIC, the National Government's Registry, land rights, they put it into the state government every year. So for those who are out there ripping off our mob, maybe impersonating us, that's an area I'll hopefully address later on, those who impersonate us. But I'm going to hand the last question over. I want to acknowledge this panel will be back this afternoon, you mob. The deadliest yarn of the day will be back to close us out. Sovereignty will be back as the last discussion for the day. But for now, last question.
Thank you for this really great conversation. My name's Mel and I live here on Gadigal country, so thanks. My question to you is around the governance, and I think there's a lot of lack of understanding around the different governance systems within different nations. So I think that kind of out there when you're thinking about the treaty. But as you were saying, we are being as acting and being owners. And so my question back to you is there a process where there could be an alternative constitution? Our constitution is just a deal-making process. The constitution's 70, 80 pages long. Most people haven't read it. They don't really understand what's in it. People are voting on referendums for something they haven't read, they don't understand because it's inaccessible. It's really around how the different states need to behave and trade together. So my question back to you, the highest form of law that we have in Australia right now is a constitution. Would there be a place for an alternative that really speaks to nature, to speaks to Mother Earth and to speaks to all of those beautiful principles that our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have?
Well, thank you for the question, Mel. Yidinji were put in a very, very unique position because we were excluded, that is not included in the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act. So we had to create our own version of a constitution which is similar to Israel's, which is about homecoming. And so we sort of had a look at various constitutions. So that's why when I made a special appearance inside of a court, they had to let me go free at large because there was no mechanism there because I didn't have any obligation or benefit or allegiance to Australia because I wasn't participating in that space. And many people do, and they should be great Australians if they're using an Australian identity. But our constitution is to look after the people that, like the Jabbergai, the Kunganji, the Gimoi Walubara, the Mullumbara people, all the different clan groups. So it sort of reflects where we are, but that means, like if your dad's from France, you can get an EU passport or whatnot. So it's something that someone else can get an extra of if they live on our territory. So it's not like we're saying we're going to destroy the law, we actually come to fulfil it because we're not part of Australia, so there's this really unique opportunity to create something that is what you've just visualised there for us, that is fair and just. And Australia's got a pretty decent constitution. It has... I can't remember in which part of it, but if you go in good faith to correct the constitution, then you can use those provisions in there and all that kind of stuff. But once again, it's not my constitution. My constitution is the Yidinji one, but that's why I'm saying in the Bible, it says once you have a king that rules over you, the king must then write the law. So if it's a Yidinji king, the written law would be our constitution. So rather than using another king's constitution, that's where we take that very, very seriously, in that all of our law is under the royal seal of the Yidinji crown. And so that's where we're a little bit different. But in terms of how serious you take the Australian Constitution, I think that's a matter for Australian people to try and resolve. I can't really change it at all. But we can change our world up there.
In regards to Penderby, where our constitution is our law, and that's already set, and he holds it. In terms of a constitution that marries up and matches with the Australian Constitution, we've got to remember that the Australian Constitution is only Chapter 11 out of the full Constitution, so it's not the real Constitution. That's not the 1900. It's the 1901, which is Chapter 11 out of the original Constitution. That doesn't apply to us, and it has no legal standing here at all. It's just a piece of paper. But the rules in there that the Crown gave to protect their subjects are good rules. So I think there are aspects of the current Constitution that can be extracted, and the non-tribal and tribal people of this continent working together, we can develop a new Constitution that best serves the people, the land, and our future generations. And I think that's really doable. And I think the time for that is now, and we don't have to ask for it, because the power is in the people, right? The corporation only has its power because you vote for them. When the people walk and want to set up something alternative, we have the law to stand under. We have the law to create a new constitution, right? Because first in time, right at law. So standing together allows for us to create something new that serves everybody and makes sure that we all prosper and are cared for together equally. And that's what we have the chance to do.
All right. Great question at the end. That's a real challenge, isn't it? I want to say to the panel, thank you very much for your time, sharing your experiences. And recognise they come together from their countries, their communities, their clans, their kin. They speak about that. Speaking about getting together, I want to say this and finish on it, and we'll come back later. We're still trying to get that national gathering. I'm proud to be wearing a Freedom Ride shirt. There's a man missing today, Uncle Philip Hall. Much love to the Gummeroy leader and Gamilaroi man. We were looking at national gatherings since 1938. The Commonwealth Government and the states' governments have stopped us meeting nationally. They got us together in the 70s. The most recent debacle where we got together was over, 4 days. We'll get together, but we're hearing about what's going on for local people, how they're overcoming colonialism today, renewing their culture and their identity, and they're going to be back this afternoon to share it. The question but about constitutions. I'm not sure if there's any First Nations, Aboriginal nations, clans or people that wish to sign up and do a deal directly with the Crown, so to speak. As a Thungati, our people sent the message, no, 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 no. Our treaties are with Gumbangas, with Birrapais, Naganawanas to the west, surrounding people's us. And when we wish to do a negotiation, we have to do it with the top of the power, those who are in charge. We mentioned the King, and if it's not through the King, you've got to go to the International Court of Justice is a Thungati position, a Gurri position. But thanks everyone for coming. Come back for more, please. Segment, we're going to be addressing Aboriginal deaths in custody. We've got the representatives of the Black Caucus, the leaders of the protest march. But for time, we're going to kick over and say we welcome Uncle Ned here today. Uncle Ned's travelled a long way. Yeah, good one, cuz. Did you want to use that one there, Uncle? Hold him. Uncle Ned joins us today to come and share his story in addressing one of the most recent tragedies of Aboriginal deaths in custody. I also have Lachlan with us and Liz who will be joining us for this panel, and we have an apology from cousin Paul Silva, who just, not feeling too well after a long week, if not month, and years of decades of fighting for Aboriginal deaths in custody. But we'll kick off with Uncle Ned. We'll get Uncle Ned's story done first, and we'll see how we're going with time, and then we may come back after the next cultural fishing rights to finish off. But introduce firstly myself, Nathan. I'm the microphone holder, the Jerry Springer of the day. If there are time for questions, I'll run the mic out to you at the end. I might hand over now to Uncle Ned to introduce himself and his story.
Yeah, good. G'day, Sydney. But I should say the Yapa name, Yapa community, because it's all about us anyway. It is all about Yapa. And when I say Yapa, we are the main people. You know, we're the Yapa, because that's how I want to bring to the attention. Like the one on Gurridyula. When I say Gurridyula, it's a white people. But excuse me, I'm not trying to offend anybody. But the thing is, let's get to the point. Let's get to the point. Right, we have 2 Yapa of our young people, 2 of our young Warlpiri people being struggled and being shot by the police. Now, that, we're not happy about it. It is disgusting. It is disgusting because that's not the way we want to live. And we want our young people to live and to learn their culture and continue and to become leaders of the community that we need. Now, first one, Komja Walker was shot in the community. All right? Now, as you know that you read the news and seen the television and everything. But, you know, for us in the community, it is sad to see our loved one being shot in the community right in front of our eyes. And that is disgusting. What we say, and I want you to repeat after me. Let's say it together. Karinjala. Say it again. Karinjala. Let's lift up this roof. Karinjala. Moajari. Karinjala. Moajari. That is, what we're saying is, we're saying, ceasefire. Ceasefire. And ceasefire, no guns in the remote community. But you know, these people we're talking to, deaf ears. Deaf ears, you know? Nobody listens. Because they can strangle someone, they can strangle a Yapa person and forget about him and just walk away. It's just another black fellow. Who cares? You know, that is not on. That is not on. That is broad daylight robbery. And broad daylight, I don't mean robbery, that's broad daylight killing a young man. You know? And my Jaja, when I say Jaja, my grandson, was strangled just over one bottle of Coke. One bottle of Coke. Excuse me for a minute. One bottle of Coke. I don't think I need a microphone. One bottle of Coke, and my Jaja gets strangled for that. And then the cop walks away. Just like nothing happens. You know these Gurridyulas, they should get a spear across their legs. They should. Because that's what they deserve. You kill a bloke, you get punished. And I'm saying this because I am so disgusted and pissed off. And we don't want that kind of anger drag, you know? You know what I mean? You people know what I mean. But we don't want that kind of anger that's all the time it's yappa, this, that, and it's they are not being punished. When are we going to get our justice? When? Can anybody tell me? I'm with you. Exactly. You're quiet because you know what? We got a biggest problem with Garia, with policemen who are working with us and trying to, you know, they say that to serve the community and protect the community. It is so bullshit. It is rubbish. You can hear me what I'm saying. I'm saying, you know, we don't want that kind of people. We don't want it. We want to live in harmony and teach our young people. You know? We, this year and last year, we said in the beginning, look, we want someone from the other interstate people to investigate. But there wasn't. They didn't give us anybody because they weren't allowed to. What a crap. What a crap. Anyway, and they haven't given us the footage of the CCTV. I didn't get to see it but my lawyer did it. But I am the one. We, the family, want it because we want to see it. We want to see what it really happened. I didn't know. We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know what killed him. What a rubbish! What a whole lot of rubbish. You know, this bloke had his knee on his back, on his neck. You think that is nothing? You think that is nothing? I don't think so. You know, that's rubbish. But we've got to live with these things. When are we going to get our justice? Because it's time to get these killers behind us and then to be punished in a way that they deserve. They're not special. They're not special. They're not Prime Minister's sons and daughters. Goodness. Yeah. So I am frustrated, and we do not want to see another black Aboriginal young man or girl to see them lose their life. It is not good. It's not fair. You know, we're here to enjoy life. And yeah, I want to say thank you for each and every one of you today to come and listen and to hear the story, what is happening out there. I'm sure we don't want to see another black Indigenous person, Yapa, being strangled or being shot by the police. All right, thank you. And if there's anything that...
Thanks, Barris. Thanks, Uncle Ned. Now, with time, we're going to get Locke and Liz to come back after the cultural fishing, and we'll talk about their experiences in this dire subject as well. But for now, with Uncle Ned on the floor, we've got about just under 10 minutes before our cultural fishing yarn. Would there be anyone respectfully who'd like to ask a question? I'll run the mic. We've probably got time for about 2, maybe 3. Has anyone got a question they'd like to ask of Uncle Ned? The experience that he's going through, losing 2 grandsons, like he spoke about, one shot in a house and the other murdered on a street. 2 seconds over, I'll get the mic to you.
Did you seek legal representation?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, slowly but surely, but soon. I don't know when, but we do. We're working on it, and hopefully it will be solved very soon. But yeah, we're looking pretty soon.
In a situation where my rights have been so grossly abused by police, it's gone through the court case, and my rights have been so grossly abused, I went through legal aid, I went to a private lawyer, he took $11,000 off me, grossly acted with gross conflict of interest, favoured the other side. That is what Aboriginals usually experience from legal representation. Is that right? Is that what you experienced?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you. Just quickly ask. Just give me a straightforward question. What's the thing? I know. Well, that's a. I think that's a really hard one. Yeah, that's not that's like not a lawyer or not a person, not straight giving us straight answers, because I have asked several times that we need to get an answer, and all the answers that was given to us. Oh, we don't know what happened. We don't know what happened, and which is actually not true.
The question you ask Aunt about Malandiri is not relevant in terms of she advocates. It's NT law. Uncle's up against the NT. Under the system, the NT police, NT Crown, directly responsible to the NT government.
Well, I think. Well, to be honest, I'll be straight to you. I'm not a favour of Malandiri or what's that? Marion Scrimsh. They're different. Like we more. I don't really agree with them because they are not doing enough. They're not doing enough because it's well, I'll be honest to you, it is disgusting because it's not in our favour now. They're not doing that. When I say lawa, means nothing. Well, that's what I thought. Like maybe the ministers would do something, and maybe get to the point, you know. But nothing like that happens. Yeah.
I'm just going to say, Aunt, with time, just to acknowledge, and Aunt was just saying how hopeless and helpless you feel at the end of it. But I've got one more question. If there was any more, we might push our luck so we don't go over time.
G'day, Uncle. Thank you for coming down. I don't have a solution, and I guess not any of us have a solution. But you send up a smoke signal, and we will come from here. We will come from farm. We'll come from wide, and we'll circle with you in solidarity, so that you can get the answers and the dignity and the cultural law LORE that you need in your community. You send that smoke signal up, and we'll all be right there.
Look, thank you so much. Thank you for your support, and thank you for your support and all your needs and stuff. So we need more supporters for this horrible thing that is happening to our people, to our young people. We don't want to see another young man or girl being killed by the police.
Were there any last questions for Uncle Ned before we finish out this particular session? On behalf of our community, Uncle Ned, thank you for coming. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Close out, Paris, I might just do a quick intro of the next two speakers that will come back. Lizzie, would you like to introduce yourself, cuz, to the mob here today?
G'day, Jarrett. My name's Lizzie Jarrett, and as I tell people, if you don't know me, you should. Because, and it's not a joke. I'm a proud member of the Blak Caucus. We are the ones that held today's protest that we do every year. Thank you. It's a privilege to be here with you, mob. Bigger privilege to have you here, my uncle. Thank you for coming for us, Thank you for hearing our call and coming down here and sharing your story and letting us be the volume to your voice. Because we understand down here on the East Coast, we got so much more privileges than our folks back up there. So like beautiful sister said, when Uncle calls, we all need to respond. And also, it's a bigger privilege to be sitting here with my own mob, Brother Lachlan Wright, who can introduce himself in a minute. But I'm Lizzie Jarrett, out for now.
Thanks, Lizzie. My name's Lachlan Wright. I'm a proud Dunghutti man. I've always grown up around this area. I lost my son Jai about 4 years ago, coming up 4 years ago, not far from here. So it's a bit of a shock to the system coming to a day like Yabun, where he came from whenever I can remember, spending the day with us. So I'm here to talk about, obviously, black deaths in custody, the issues that we've been through the last 4 years, going through court and having a police officer come out found guilty on the other side of it. So I'll be back to talk about that. So sometimes it does work, not very often. It was the first time only.
All right. So we'll get Liz back and we'll have Locke back to talk about their journeys later. We'll certainly share some more time straight after the cultural fishing, which we'll say we're going to do a quick changeover. We're going to get the two uncles up here, Uncle Wal and Uncle Rob, to talk about cultural fishing, and then we'll come back and share that journey and real, dare we say, deadly work recently to get a policeman charged. Bajuri Gamarua, we're back, Rob. No cricket for you, Neff. Soccer, football, the real game. Bajuri Gamarua, g'day all in Gadigal. We're here now just to recommence and reconvene the Aboriginal deaths in custody discussions. For those who were here earlier, we're going to reintroduce Lachlan and Lizzie to speak about their experiences in this very dire subject, but very much the reality of our lives as Aboriginal people. So, without further ado, I might hand over firstly to Locke to commence it off, and then over to Liz, and at the end, we'll do a bit of quick Q&A. We've got about half an hour, and we'll do that together now. Yeah, you should be live now, cuz. Yeah, you're live.
Hello, my name's Lachlan Wright. I'm a proud Dunghutti man. From the mid-north coast, Kempsey and Bellbrook is where my family's from. I guess I'm here today to talk a little bit about my son, Jai Kalani Wright, who passed away 4 years, going on 4 years ago. Still a little bit raw, obviously, talking about it. He is born just here at RPA, went to school down the road at IGS. You know, had lots of friends and family that live in the area. Like I said, he passed away 4 years ago in an accident with police, where a police car cut him off while he was riding a motorbike, not far from here. So I guess I didn't really know what I was going to talk about today because it's so close to me, but I guess all I can give is a little bit of, I guess, understanding of what we've kind of been through the last few years since he passed away. I guess I'll start with something positive. The positive thing is that we've been through court. The police officer was charged and he was found guilty for causing the death of Jai. So I guess that's the best part of it. It doesn't bring Jai back. It doesn't make all our family, feel good all of a sudden. But it gives us something to kind of hold on to and take forward with us. Gives, his brothers and sister, something to remember him by and to keep close to us. So I guess I wanted to start by saying, you never really know how much you're going to be dealing with Aboriginal deaths in custody. I never thought that my son would die as a kid. I never thought that he would die because of an accident that a police officer caused. So I kind of found myself in the situation going through it, that we just kind of lived on survival mode. It was probably more difficult to deal with his death than it was to deal with going to court and dealing with police officers and dealing with information that they're giving you. And I'm going to a coronial inquest and then obviously going to court. But I just wrote a couple of things down that I wanted to touch on. The most difficult thing for us was, obviously we knew once he had an accident that it was something really bad. The first contact we had with police at the hospital, the police officer, the most senior police officer in this area, spoke to us, his family, and told us basically what happened, that a police officer pulled in front of him and caused an accident. Now that was shocking to hear, but it was, at the time, I guess, it gave us some kind of answer. Well, it took them maybe a day to take that back. And they basically told us that was never said. We never saw that police officer again. All of a sudden, we were seeing all these other police officers that were involved. So hearing that, knowing that it's the truth, seeing footage, seeing reports on the news and that shows actual footage of it, we knew what the truth was. And to be told that by the first police officer that we saw was, I don't know, made us feel a little bit better at that time. Then for them to walk that back, that was something that we really focused on, that really affected us, that we already didn't completely trust police. Obviously, we're upset that Jai's had an accident because of a police officer, but that just eroded any type of trust that we had, when we were struggling the most, to hear that. Then I guess the institution kicks in, what the police service is. They told us it was going to be an independent investigation, which is great. When you hear that, you think, okay, someone's really going to look into this and see if they can find the truth. Then we found out the independent investigation is done by another police officer and another crew of police that weren't from Redfern Police Station, but were from City Police Station, so they're different. So that was a real shock to us, that police can investigate police for a situation that's caused by a police officer. How can they be honest, or how can we get to the truth? And I think that was really, really difficult to deal with. From that, we found out that the DPP decided not to charge the police officer. This is the initial time. So then we had no trust in the police. We'd been through this 8 to 10 week investigation that they had done, sent the information to the DPP. We thought there was going to be charges, whatever they may be, dangerous driving or negligent driving. That was dismissed by the DPP. So then we move on to the coronial inquest. And we had I guess we were lucky to deal with the ALS, Aboriginal Legal Service, who were excellent for us, had been through coronial inquest before, so it was a good opportunity. They told us, and we believed them, that it was a good opportunity for us to tell the truth, you know, not to a judge, but to someone that can, if there's enough evidence there, pass it back to the DPP. So we went to the coronial inquest. They're same thing. so we went to that, and within 2 days, the coroner stopped all proceedings because of the evidence that was being presented, and sent all that evidence back to the DPP for them to look over and see whether charges could be laid again. So we didn't know that could happen, but it happened so quick that we were like, okay, we've got our hopes up again. Maybe there will be some kind of charges that come on the back of this. So we've just finished court. We went through court all last year. It was a long time to get there. But in December, I can't think of the date, one day in December, he was found guilty, the police officer, Sergeant Bryant, for dangerous driving causing death. We didn't know at the time, but we found out that that's the first time that a police officer has been found guilty in an Aboriginal death in custody court case. So, I mean, we've all been, well, a lot of us have friends and family that have been through, you know, death in custody from our mob, whatever it may be, and we know all these times when it hasn't worked and no one's got charged, or when the coppers have been investigating the coppers, they put a bit, you know, leave a bit aside so there's no charges that happen. So I think we were lucky to get to that point and for the charges to be laid even, but then for him to be found guilty and to be sentenced in April, I think it's good. It's good for us. It gives us a little bit of a lease of life to think about, you know, Jai in a different kind of vein of thought. So we're happy for that. But we understand that all of our family and all of other Aboriginal people around the country and that have, you know, died in custody or are still dying in custody, because the biggest numbers of deaths in custody was last year in New South Wales. We understand that not everyone gets to court and gets to prove that they were killed unjustly. So my thoughts are with all Aboriginal families that have had to go through this, and hopefully that, you know, it's a bit of a tide that's changed now. You know, one police officer's been found guilty, so you never know. It could go on from that. And all that we ever want in any of this is the truth. That's all we ever said from the very beginning. We just wanted everyone to be truthful and the truth to come out. And I guess with that guilty verdict, I think we were kind of deep down, the heart was a little bit happy with that. So thank you.
Just remind everyone, if you're not aware, Lachlan has lived and breathed this matter. It's still live, as he was just attesting. The sentencing will take place soon. But Lachlan leads and is a representative of the only successful prosecution of a policeman or police person in doing their duties to take a life of an Aboriginal person. All my love and respects. Strength to your Loch, the fam who are here, kids, fathers, brothers, siblings. Love to you all. Yeah, we'll speak a bit more later, but for now we might hand over to Liz. Introduce yourself, cuz. Maybe even your role you played in helping here with this one.
Yeah. Gurridyula, Jarrett. Hello, everybody. My name's Lizzie Jarrett. I'm a proud member of the Blak Caucus. I've been volunteering on the front line in the coronial space since years and years and years and years. Sadly, I've sat there in them coronial spaces with too many families to even list on 3 of our hands put together here right now. Yeah, and then I had the honour, although it's a sad word to say, I had the honour to be there for my brother and my family while I took on this case against Constable Bryant for another death in custody. another one, and another one, and another one, and another one. And if you look at the stats last year, and another one, and another one. And sadly, we're going to sit here and my words are going to be echoed very soon because there will be another one. That's the truth of being a black fella in this country when we're taking on the state. And they're not even taking on the state. For, nephew Jai is a young boy riding a motorbike. Does that crime does that give you a right to take away his life? But the biggest thing I want to talk about right now is actually the coronial spaces, you know what I mean? Like, there has to be, I'd like to call out right now the New South Wales State Coroner. She came out with a statement of words, and they were very powerful words, and I respect her for those words. But now it's time to put them words to action. Now it's time for them fellas in them spaces to turn around and fight for reform and fight for review. 2 words I don't use, but we have to use in a white space of government. To put the power back on the people above her, to say, where is my power and where is my respect? How many recommendations are we going to sit through with how many different families and nothing changes? I've sat through so many different coronial spaces of hangings, and the coronial, way back in 35 years ago, they were told to remove hanging points. They still have not been removed from all the jails. How many medical incidents or police being the first responders? Where's the ambulance to talk our people down? Where's an ACLO to be an intermediator for our people that are having a mental episode, yet they end up being shot dead? So I really want to put it out there to the New South Wales State Coroner right now to come and sit with family members as Lachlan, as myself, as a Dungay family, as a Hickey family, as a Stanley Russell family, as any single family who's been here and done what we've done and done the hard yards and had these police investigate police. We demand, and we've demanded for so long, independent bodies. Independent bodies. It's not that much to ask if they have nothing to hide. As my brother said, you're told one thing one day and then they come and flip the switch on you the next day, and your family is supposed to be able not be angry and not be confused and not have distrust in the system. Bloody bullshit. So I put it again out there, New South Wales State Coroner, ALS, Legal Aid, everyone and anyone that has a space in the world of coronial law. Let's come together and let's stand up and make sure we're not here next year with a new list of the highest deaths in custody known to our fucking people. Yes, I use English. Sorry, my niece. She loves looking at me like that. Yeah, she's the only one allowed to check me. So yes, Josie, thank you. But yeah, in reality, you know what I mean? Like, you only got to come to a coronial inquest to see how much of a mess it is for families. How much of a mess it is to sit there and be re-traumatised. And re-traumatised and then fed these glorious words called recommendations, called findings, and that's all you get. That's all you get. A recommendation to make sure it doesn't happen to the next black fella. But guess what? It happened to the next black fella because these recommendations are not being implemented into the government. So it's time New South Wales State Coroner and any other family member come together and put pressure on this government to make sure all the implementation of all the recommendations, there were 339 made. Only a handful got put into far-out government. Imagine if those 339 were implemented when they were made. We may not be sitting here right now with another broken father and family. Understand our plight. Understand our fight. We're not here just to, be famous and take on, I'm Jai Wright's dad. My brother don't want to be just remembered for Jai Wright's dad being a death in custody. He wants to be remembered as being him and being a loving father and being a good community person and rising up and raising our babies to be better and to be able to respect and have a good life ahead of them without being in fear of police coming and chasing them and taking their life. So again, my main point today is I call upon the New South Wales State Coroner to come and have a dialogue with all the deaths in custody's family. Come and put a fucking submission into this government and make real change. Don't just come out with words. Words are good, yeah, I got plenty of them. But guess what? My words are followed with actions. So why aren't hers and why aren't the government's? As far as I'm concerned, police investigating police, how do you get justice out of that? Can anybody tell me? How? How? You don't. Plain and simple. You can only look through history to know that my words are truth. We don't get any justice. We don't get any truth when police are investigating police. We need independent bodies. We need recommendations laid into law to make sure our future, our men, our women are safe and respected by those who are meant to uphold the law for us. Because at the moment, we're not seeing it. We're not seeing it. 2026, the highest rate known of death in custody since the first commission. What does that tell you about what's happening? It tells you that our children, our men and our women are open season targets for these fellas because they can keep getting away with it because there is no institution of law that's holding them accountable. So right here, right now, we have power to hold that accountability. We have power to email and write submissions as, yes, it's very boring, and yes, it's very tedious, but it's not as boring and tedious as sitting in another coronial fucking inquest and watching a family be broken and traumatised with no truth or justice. And yeah, I'm going to leave it because I'm getting riled up as I do. But yeah,
Well
reality
said,
is, join us, you mob. Thank you.
Put your hands together. And a bit of background and context. Liz worked for over 10 years in the New South Wales Coroner's Court. She was there as the Aboriginal liaison officer, helping her own family out to get through this one. But as she attested, there are literally hundreds in that 10-year period that have occurred. And for her own health too. But
because my people weren't getting the right answers. I tried and tried and tried and tried, and I was there for nearly 2 years. And before the 2 years, I made that position happen there because I was volunteering out the front and they got sick of seeing the angry black mouth. So they gave me a job. I tried my way, but in the end, I had to resign for the fact of my accountability to community comes first.
yeah, well said, sister. And then I want to acknowledge also helping dearly work she's done was with my cousin, collective cousin to Lock too. I'm a Ritchie. My nan was Josephine Moore and her father was Thomas Ritchie. His mother was Sarah Dungay. My mother's born on Burnt Bridge Reserve, Kempsey. We call it the black capital of Australia, Burnt Bridge. I'm a Green Hill fella, I'm a Bellbrook fella and I'm a South West Rocks fella. That's my bloodlines, that whole valley. My cousin over 10 years ago infamously was murdered by correctional officers at Long Bay Jail. It's on footage. He sadly worded the mouths, "I can't breathe." My auntie's still fighting for justice. My cousin Paul would have been here today and that's why I speak now to apologise for Paul. 10 years now, can't even use that word to commemorate what happened to our people. But this is an ongoing issue. In 1991, they were holding consultations here in Redfern. They went over to a paceway, Harold Park. A beautiful man who's now battling his health, Uncle Lyle Munro, spoke up about Aboriginal deaths in custody in 1991, saying this has got to end. We're going to call it out. But here we are. We've had more deaths in custody per year since that report, and it's quite simple as Lizzie outlined. Read the recommendations, you mob. Learn the reality. It shouldn't be a reality that more of our kids are in lockup today than ever, more of our adults. We spoke earlier and Unc spoke about the NT. The reality is that 100% of the youth detention are Aboriginal. Go over to WA, it's 90 plus. And when you're going into the adult populations and we're making up 50% here in New South Wales and we're only 3% of the population, it's a system gone wrong. The reality, economics, it costs more to lock up our kids and remove them from our community than what it does to pay $250,000 to their parent. Why would we be backing up systems that cost us so much? Why is it costing so much to jail our people? But why is that becoming one of the largest items on the government budget? Locking people away. In Kempsey now we've got a private jail. It's built on a dreaming site, on a song line. Thanks for bringing a jail to our community so we don't have to travel to Grafton anymore. But that reality is jails are growing bigger than what we are in terms of funding as a line item. We can fix this as a country. Read the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody. It's now affecting more than just our mob. It's affecting all the non-English speaking backgrounds. All the cultural people are being locked up at record numbers. We've got to address the system that locks us up, keeps us locked up, and now becomes one of the biggest line items in economics in our country. Shame on Australia for turning a colonial jail into a modern-day prison system that becomes one of the largest economic powerhouses. And sadly, if you're not aware about Aboriginal deaths in custody, it's affecting every community in this country. My cousin Lachlan speaks today to the Hickey family, to the Murray families in Redfern. The first death in custody was about the Murray family. Nearly 20 years prior to my nephew being, killed by a policeman, TJ was killed by a policeman in Redfern. This has got to end. This cycle's got to end. I don't want traumatised people. When I was a child in the 90s on the block, I woke up to find that my cousin and my best mate's brother were rammed off the Pacific Highway, and we had to walk up to the legal service to ask my Uncle Cecil, what happens here? How do we report it? All my respects to the Whitten family, the Donovans and Jarretts. No inquiry into that death in custody of police ramming kids off the road. It's happening everywhere, guys. Stand with Liz, stand with Locke. Much love to Paul, who's not here. Uncle Ned, who was here earlier, who's still around, sharing his story. We must stop Aboriginal deaths in custody. Stop all deaths in custody. Thank you. Bajuri Gamarua, g'day in the local Gadigal language. Our next speaking tent, now speaking out, will be about Aboriginal cultural fishing rights. And we're very lucky here today to have Uncle Wal and Uncle Robert come and share with us the fight for Aboriginal cultural fishing rights in New South Wales. It's been led by the South Coast mob, and today we're going to hear about that journey, ongoing fight for our rights. So I'll just give everyone a moment to take a seat and we'll kick off. So, same as last time, same format. We'll get Uncle Wal and Uncle Rob to introduce themselves. And then at the end, we'll do a bit of question and answer so you can seek out any questions, answers or more info from our deadly speakers. My name's Nathan. I'll be facilitating today. My euphemism, I'll run the microphone or do the Jerry Springer for you at the end. For now, I'm going to hand over and introduce Uncle Wal.
Thanks, Jerry. My name's Wally Stewart. I'm a Yuin man from the South Coast, or part of the Yuin Nation. I'm a Walbunja man, actually. And I just want to say before I start, this is the first time I've ever been invited to a Gurridyula to actually talk about our fishing rights. I get invited to go everywhere else and talk about it. So it's a real privilege and honour to be here to share our story about the culture fishing rights, that the fight we've been having down there for the last 50 years. So, that's me.
Hello. G'day everybody. My name's Robert Chewing. I'm a proud Wabunja man. On the South Coast, we are currently going through a native title claim, and I'm part of that claim. And very proud to advocate along the coast through a fishing rights group Facebook page, which gives a lot of information to our community on the coast. So as we go through all this, I suppose what we'll do is just if you just want to ask questions or whatever, please put your hands up and we'll try and answer whatever you feel as though you want to do. So thank you.
I'll try to do the best to tell the story, because we're talking 50 years of fighting for fishing rights down on the South Coast. And so down on the South Coast where we live, starts our native title boundary for the Yuin mob, starts from basically Lurnpa right down near the Victorian border, and it takes in 13 nations, and we're sea people. Katungal means sea people, and where we live, 90% of our food source came from the ocean and the estuaries, and in the last 30, 40, 50 years, we've been denied that right to exercise our cultural rights. So they were, this industry came along and started telling us, oh no, you can't do that. We own them resources, and we're going, what are you talking about, mate? you know, we've been doing this all our lives. And then they brought out these laws, and then they talked about bag limits, and then they started, you know, sending our mob to jail for culture fishing. And we're going, what do you mean, you know, sending us to jail? Like, oh, no, there's a law for a bag limit, and he's exceeded the bag limit. We go, no, we never gave up our fishing rights. We don't remember you coming here and talking about our fishing rights. And so in the end, we had to stand up. In the last 11, 12 years ago, we got together with our mob down on the South Coast, and we said, no, you know, enough's enough. They've nearly destroyed our way of life. And we said, we're going to have a protest. And then we turned up at a protest. 180 people turned up. We didn't realise it was, you know, that bad. We knew it was bad, but we didn't realise it was that bad. And then when we got there and started talking about the protest, you know, people were saying the same thing. You know, like I said, and the point is if we didn't stand up, our cultural way of life down on the South Coast would have been severed forever. Because that's who we are. We're sea people. 90% of our food source came from the estuaries and the ocean. It was taken away from us. People were sent to jail for fishing, and we're going. And then when they were sent to jail, their families were breaking down. Their families were, you know, breaking down. Our food source changed. Our diet changed. You know, so it had this massive impact, not just for the people who were fishing, but it rippled right through the whole community. And so, and just down in there, and it was all because this one industry, the abalone industry, they came down there in the early days and they just took over our fishing rights. They didn't even know what they were in the 60s until they found a market for exporting them, and then the next minute they owned them. But the abalone to us is a medicine food. It's a healthy food. It takes a fair amount of exercise to do it, so it was a healthy lifestyle for our community, and it kept our people healthy. And then we done a survey in 2015 to identify the impact that it had on our community. So when they were sending people to jail, their families were breaking down. They were coming out with mental health issues in jail. Their diet had changed. Heart disease, diabetes, it takes a fair amount of exercise to fish and dive. So that healthy diet was gone. And the loss of culture, where down the South Coast we teach our people how to fish, and we teach our young kids how to fish. And so that was nearly, every time we turned up at the water, the fisheries and the police were there, you know, booking us. So they arrested our mob that bad that we couldn't, was like they nearly severed out that culture that we passed on to them younger ones. So that's why we had to get up and start doing something about it. So and then our own mob, because they were branded as poachers, which they're not poachers, you're culture fishing. So we had to go and educate our own community, because when native title came in 92, they had to amend the Fisheries Management Act in 93 in every state to accommodate that section of the Act, that Native Title Act, Section 211, which says, you have the right to hunt, gather and fish for any purpose. But in New South Wales, they amended their Fisheries Management Act, but they didn't actually police it under the native title. So they kept on policing our mob under their state regulations. So we had to get up and challenge that. And then we started, so we had to go and get pro bono lawyers. No lawyer would touch us. So we had to go and get pro bono lawyers to say, look, he's not a poacher. And we had our lawyers, the legal service, saying, look, just come to court, plead guilty and I'll get you 6 months, or a good behaviour bond. And we're going, no, that's not good enough. There's a law there. There's a Commonwealth law there that sits on top of the state. That's our defence. We're culture fishing. We're feeding our families. So we had to start educating the lawyers and getting pro bono lawyers to actually represent our community. And so when we started representing the community, and we got a lot of the cases thrown out, then we were able to get the lawyers were able to claim the court cost if we won the case. So we won 11 cases, got thrown out. They ended up paying $1.3 million. That's only a start of it. I'll hand over to Rob. Rob can talk a bit more on it.
So we looked at the situation. This is going back to sort of 2015, and when we had the actual protest, we thought, how do we actually communicate to the people on the coast? So we started a fishing rights group page. That fishing rights group page, when it first started, there was so much anguish on it. There was so many people who were so savage and so upset about what had transpired on the coast that they just needed to vent. So as the months ticked by and the years ticked by, we sort of started to get a good idea of how people wanted the coast to actually act and operate. From that, we then started to do very strategic lobbying when it came to government on many different fronts. Like Wally said, it was to do with the lawyers. We started with them. We made a pretty good case in regards to that. We also looked at what the people wanted, and our first approach was to actually talk to the people first and then see whether what approach they wanted to take, and then we started to try and work out how to deliver that in a way that was culturally appropriate. As we worked through this, we realised that we had to actually go down the lines of, okay, create awareness first, try and get some sort of funding, because we were absolutely broke. We were just scraping money off the ground to try and work out how to actually support the community. And then we thought, okay, then we've just got to start up a corporation so that we can then lobby for funding or grants, which we did, and it is the Junga Corporation, Land and Sea, Water and Sea Corporation. And what that did is it gave us a platform to then advocate for the coast in a different way. We started a tour boat business. That tour boat business has now turned into a cultural awareness tour business, which advocates for the coast and educates along the coast. And we've also started a drumline or a shark tagging program, which in turn gives our young lads the opportunity to go out and learn skills in regards to fishing, working, and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, we're really banging away at it.
Uncle Rob, do you want to share with them the sort of general location of your cultural tourism business and cultural renewal on the water down there?
Yep. Yeah, it's in Murrumu, which is, It's probably about, I don't know if people know here, Bateman's Bay. It's about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 2 hours down from Bateman's Bay at Wunggu Inlet. So, yeah. And actually, Wally's the instigator of this, so maybe he could actually give you a bit of a good overview of what we're actually doing with the tour program down there.
Yeah, well, like we got real good at, we had to get real smart at using the media, because, and the media was like every time a black fella went out there got caught for diving, the cameras had come in and the police and the fisheries, and they'd put all the abalone laid out on the road like they were massive big criminals, even though the abalone industry can take 100 tonne a year, and our mob was only, so they were real good at blowing up the media, and it actually caused a lot of discrimination along the whole South Coast for the Aboriginal people, because that's how the white fellas portrayed us, as these poachers. And we worked it out, it was pretty obviously that New South Wales fisheries were in bed with the abalone industry. They were protecting them, So we had to use the media to get smarter than them, I suppose. And I don't know if you've seen it. One of our old fellows who was 75, and he'd already been through 2 court cases, and we got him thrown out. And then the third time, 6 months later, they go and chase him again, and book him. And then, so we subpoenaed the body camera. We subpoenaed the body camera off the fisheries, and when we got on 7:30 report, and you see the fisheries running in, he's chasing him in the water, 75-year-old man who knew nothing else but fish, and then tackling him in the water, and he's going, no, I know my rights, don't take my food off me, because like down the South Coast, there's not a lot of work for our mob. You know, in the early days, there was only fishing, seasonal work or sawmills, but all our mob were good at fishing, and they subsidised, and they still do it today, they subsidise their living from fishing. So anyway, cut a long story short, getting back to the question, we started learning to play the media against them and showing them the truth. And so we ended up putting in a grant, and we got this grant for a charter boat. You know, I said I won't swear today, but anyway, we put this grant in, and it was from DPI for fisheries, and they gave it to us. So we got this tour boat, and we do this tour called The Impact of Colonisation on the South Coast. And so we get them on there, and it's about you know, closing the gap. So we don't only just talk about the impact it's had on our people, but we talk about the impact it's had on our environment. Because we had we had a native oyster, it got wiped out. You know, our organisation Junga just went and put 2 million spat back in there to grow them back again. Like they filter the water, you know, that sort of stuff. So we talk about that. And then when my parents bought a house in Murrumu in 1958, they actually bought a house in Murrumu, and the white fellas in Murrumu came around with a petition to move us out. And you know, and that's before Aboriginal people were allowed to live there in a town. So it actually sort of paved the way. So that's some of the stuff we talk about, the impact of colonisation on one of our tours. And we don't mean to hit it hard. We say it in a nice, friendly way, as you know, trying to break barriers down, and then they sort of don't believe you, you know. And so I got my mother's dog tag, you know, the exemption form, where she had to go to the police station in Murrumu in 1961, so she could walk around the shop. So it's got Murrumu police station on and a photo of my mother. So this is some of the education that we do to educate people about our fishing, because where we do this tour on the boat, the beauty about the boat, they can't get off and walk away unless they want to swim, you know. But anyway, you know, so where we do this tour, we have to go past that house. So we pull up there and we talk about it. And this is where my parents lived, you know. And this is before black fellas were allowed to live in the town, you know. And so I've got that old newspaper, and then then this conversation starts. It's a real good education tool in a honestly way. And that's what this tour is about, is the impact of colonisation and how Aboriginal people lived between the 50s to today. And we didn't think it was going to go that bad, and it just went viral. We even got fisheries inspectors coming on board, you know, and I was going, like, how good's this, you know? So, but anyway, that's another story. But anyway, we got good at, the reason why we changed the attitude is because we actually stood up and challenged that system, you know, and we did, and we used, like, you know, we had everyone come there and go, no, native tile's no good, native tile's no good. But it was that section, that one little section of the Act, Section 211 of the Native Title Act, that we were able to use their law to break them down because they discriminated against it. And now, and it showed after all the evidence we've been fighting, so down just in our little area down on the South Coast, we had over, 600 engagements with just Aboriginal people fishing and fisheries officers. So that gave us enough evidence to lay a class action on them. So we got a class action on fisheries today as we stand. So, you know, and the beauty about that is that it's not just for that one person who goes out and getting caught by the fisheries exceeding that white man's bag limit or whatever, because the case study that we done in 2015 highlighted the damage that had done to our whole community. So when I say the damage it done to our whole community, you know, fisheries were booking that fella there. Well, he was a breadwinner for his family. You know, so he couldn't go home and feed his family. You can read some of these submissions online when we done because we actually, like in New South Wales, actually passed culture fishing in Parliament in 2009. Section, what is it? 21AA. And so what they did is like usually when you pass something in Parliament, it comes to law the next day. And they didn't. They just parked it. So a few years ago in 2023, we said, what happened to culture fishing? Where is it? So we lobbied to have an inquiry. Why didn't that come to law? And then so out of that inquiry, it highlighted that they actually frauded their own Parliament. So that's what the class action is about, is that they discriminated against the Native Title Act when they were policing us under their state regulations, and instead of the Commonwealth Act that sits on top of the state, and in the inquiry where they discriminated against fraud in their own Parliament because they never implemented it when they passed it in Parliament. So that's what the class action is. But with the class action, it's not just the people who are fishing, it's all the people in that community. So them old people, when young fellas go fishing, they'd take that old big feed of fish, lobsters, abalone, whatever. We can't help it if we've got the best seafood in Australia. But they'd take that feed there, and they couldn't get that feed there. So their diet changed. They've got heart disease, diabetes, overweight, all from just these one regulations put on our communities. And so we had to stand up and stop it, and we had to pull our community together. And it's hard, I'm telling you, it's hard when we got 13 clans, 450 kilometres of coastline, in our community, over 10,000 people in our boundary. It's hard to pull the community together like that, but we had one thing in common, and that was fishing. We all can fish, and we all love fishing, and it kept our people healthy. So that's why we had to stand up and save our way. Otherwise, if we didn't fight, our culture way of life would have been severed forever. And there's no amount of money you can put on loss of culture. So, sorry. I'll hand it back to Rob.
I don't think he talks too much. I think he talks the truth. I think there was another hideous thing which was going on behind the scenes as well, and that is that our resources on the coast were depleting at a massively rapid rate. What we did is we started to lobby our community and do a survey to ask what was the biggest impact on the coast in regards to our resources. And out of that, it was quite damning that they said that it was mismanaged, and they said also too that we had a major urchin problem because in our area we've got what they call urchin barons, and those barons are now encroaching and have actually decimated areas of where we cultural fish for abalone, lobsters, etc. I don't know if anyone knows about what urchins do, but they're actually an endemic species, and they are very opportunistic. And what they do is when abalone is removed, or when products are removed from the area, it creates an imbalance, and then the urchins come in and get in the holes and crevices, so that other crustaceans can't actually inhabit those areas. So now on the coast, we've got, from what researchers are saying, is that we've lost close to 60% of our reefs on the coast. So it's just as bad, or if not worse, than the starfish problem up in the Crown of Thorns. So we've actually started a major lobby campaign now to sort of explain the situation, and I'm sure Wally would love to have a bit of a chat about that.
Yeah, I do. So we just done a documentary last year called White Rock, and we took it around Australia to 50 communities and showed them the damage that's down here on the south coast. And so the reason we call it White Rock is because all our reefs are dying. The sea urchins have got no competition, or the abalone's got no competition no more, or the sea urchins, all the abalone. They've taken over 10,000 tonnes, the commercial industry. From 1983 to 2022, the evidence is there. And they've overfished it. The DPI's managed our water. Well, they haven't even managed it, They've destroyed it, and they've let this industry destroy it. So if the sea urchins have got no competition for food, they're just coming in and eating all the kelp. And a good example is how bad it is that what Rob talked about in what is it, the Great Barrier Reef, they had a problem called the crown of fawns, and they had 15 crown of fawns to 1 hectare, and the government put millions and millions of dollars into it. Well, the problem we got now right here under our nose that's happening is 1 hectare, with a comparison to the crown of fawns, 1 hectare of reef is 100,000 sea urchins, and it's just come down, and 50% of our reefs, because we got native title on the water, you know, it goes 3 nautical miles out to sea, and it goes 450 kilometres of coastline. And in that area of ours, I told her that the government's just accepted that evidence anyway. So it's going to be the biggest sea claim in Australia, and we're just working towards a determination. And we've got one of our lawyers there from Native Title, Morgan there. Stand up, Morgan. He's done a great job with us, mate. I thought I'd try to make you ashamed there, brother. But yeah, so we've had, like when we done that evidence for the native title, you know, we thought, oh, you know, the government's going to come back and, you know, ask for, you know, A, B, C, D. Well, they couldn't even question the evidence. That's how strong our evidence was down on the South Coast. So that highlights how connected our mob to the water was down on the South Coast. But we don't fight for just the South Coast, we fight for everybody. Like we had mob out west ring us up because of the fishing rights group that we stand up and fight. One black fellow out west got caught with an oversized, what they call Murray cod, and they got a law on it, and they booked him, and he rang us up and said, can they do that? And we're going, what, brother, are you traditional owner from there, brother? And he goes, yeah. And they said, well, what are you going to do with that fish? He said, I'm taking it home to eat it with my mob. And I said, well, challenge it. Go and challenge it. They got no right telling you you can't take that feed of fish. And so he did. And then you know, we set him up with a lawyer and, you know, put him on the right track. And we told him to ring up Native Title Service, get his genealogy, show them how he's connected, and rings us up a couple of months later, goes, hey, they threw that case out, you know. But this is what they do. This is what they do. They're tricking our mob. So when our mob gets caught, we actually set up a card, because every time we went to court and our mob started challenging them, the courts would throw it straight out and say, oh, we didn't know he was a traditional owner. We didn't know he was a member of the South Coast claim. So what we did is we set up the card, a member for our claim, and then on the back of it, it's got the section 211 broken down to say, so when fisheries come along to book our mob, we'd go, no, brother, I'm a native title holder. I'm exempted. You know, I fit under Section 211 of the Native Title Act. Look, here's my membership card, and there's my rights on the back. So we sort of started breaking the, you know, fisheries down because they were just discriminating against us all the time. You know. Too deadly. I know. That's what it is. Made up for shooting deadly, isn't it? 50 years. 50 years of deadly?
I'd just say how deadly that is, you mob. If you're not aware, mob in the 80s used to carry their little cards around, issued by land councils, and they sort of got overlooked. Just very proud that that's continuing now, and what you see with Robert's practical example is something that he can just give to anyone at any time to hopefully get them to pull up and think about it. Well done.
And it wasn't easy because our mob was so bitter, our young fellas, they were sick of being pulled up. So when the fisheries and the police would come along and start, you know, throwing their weight around, they would start cursing them. You know, oh, fuck off you. You know, I said I wouldn't swear. But anyway, we had to say, look, you just got to be nice. You've got to show them your card. Show them that you're a native title because that's the only defence we got. Like, I'm not, you know, flash on native title or land councils or whatever, but it's a tool that we can use and it's their law and we use the law, their own law against them and brought them undone. And that's what that class action. That class action, we could have 10,000 people in our claim that could join that class action and make them pay. Because I can't believe, like, if you know our industry, the fishing industry down the South Coast, and you got this abalone industry. Well, our mob was just, you know, going around. We didn't even have to dive for them then. We just walk around the low tide and pick them up. There was that many. But it's a medicine food, and it was a healthy food, and it was a healthy lifestyle. It's a culture food. And then all of a sudden they come down in the 70s going, no, mate, they're ours. And then they started exporting to Japan. So we haven't even got that data between 74 when they first started to 1983. We've only got the data from 1983 to 2022, and they've taken 10,000 tonnes of abalone out of our water down there on the South Coast, and try to blame us as now it's depleted and they want to buy out. And I'm going like, you want to pay these out? You know, and I'm going like, that they should be putting that money into restoration, the damage that they've done to our communities. You know, so this is the fault we're having down there now. So with that White Rock, the reason White Rock actually came about, the documentary, is because in 2023 or 2022 they had a Commonwealth, Commonwealth invasive species inquiry, and then everybody highlighted the damage to the sea urchins that's doing to our reefs. So out of that inquiry, they set $55 million aside for a task force to start counteracting the sea urchin problem. And not one cent of that's been released after they've identified it as well. Not only us, you know, every scientist in Australia have identified the problem. And because of the warm currents, like everyone talks about the Barrier Reef, well, we've got 8,500 kilometres of southern reefs that goes from right up there all the way down around Tasmania, right around to the bottom of Western Australia. And no one's talking about it. But these sea urchins now are moving, like they're moving down to Tasmania, they're not even native to Tasmania. They had to take 500 tonne of these sea urchins off their reefs just to save their lobster industry. You know, this is how bad this is, and we've been lobbying now, you know, this government to release some of that money. We went to Parliament and put up to Parliament in October to say that, you know, we put up a $23 million restoration plan that could start fixing this problem. Sorry.
You there?
So I'm going to hand it to Rob. I've talked too much.
Yeah. Also, too, while all this was going, if we just rewind a little bit on this, what we had to do was we had to identify where the rot was, or where or how this was happening. And when we looked at it, we went, hang on a minute, fisheries have not done a damn thing about the resources on the coast. So we thought, well, how do we actually bring this to light? So what we did is started a inquiry into fisheries, and from that, the evidence which came out was absolutely damning of fisheries. And I'm sure, like, Wally would sort of get quite deep into this, but ultimately what it came down to was it was totally mismanaged, and it was proof that the fisheries have actually mismanaged the resource on the coast. And I'm assuming that fisheries sort of don't really have their finger on the pulse when it comes to understanding, like Indigenous do, of how the marine space works. So when we did this, that set up the precedence then for the inquiry into invasive species, and that invasive species inquiry identified that the urchins were a major problem on the coast. So that's how that sort of started. So what we did then is went, hang on a minute, we've got to stand on our 2 feet here and we've got to drive this. So what we've done is we've actually said, look, you know, this $55 million that you guys have actually put up front, we'd like to be leaders in actually trying to reverse out of this mess by creating I suppose it's a cultural commercial industry where we actually go in and remove the urchins in a culturally appropriate way that also creates economic gain. So it's a holistic approach rather than just go in and rip the urchins out and cause more issues. So we're looking at, we've done a feasibility study, and now what we've got is a business plan which we've actually delivered to fisheries, and we're just waiting on their response to see whether they want to support what we're doing. Yeah, we'll just see how that goes. So, yeah. Well?
I just want to acknowledge we're now to the last 10 minutes and say we'll open up for questions and answers soon, but I hope you really are enjoying this. I want to say thank you, Uncle Wal and Uncle Rob, for sharing the story of fighting for cultural fishing rights on the South Coast. Want to deeply acknowledge the impacts that they're having is going to help all blackfellas around this country, not just Gurris in the south. Us Gurris in the north of New South Wales, similar, have the same problems when it comes to access and country to sustain ourselves. The industry known as fishing today and the marine aquatic industries today have taken over and removed us. And I want to acknowledge that it's been led by these fellas in the south, the Yuin people. Acknowledge the Mogo community as Aboriginal commercial fishermen who've been fighting for our rights from Murrumu and Mogo, and acknowledge the cultural acknowledgement. I'm a Biripi, got connections with Warramai. We're known as a mob who have a totem known as the Great White. Doesn't spook us, we swim with it, we surf with it. They born and they birthed in our backyard. And I'm proud to say my grandfather was a commercial fisherman. And we were commercial fishermen in the Biripi area. We've lost to Saunders recently. Uncle Warner is our last licensed fisherman. But we were fishing commercially. But when it came to culture, I remember asking my grandfather, we got the Great White, no one does it better than us. And he said, He said, one day you'll get down the far south and meet them Yuin mob. In fact, go down to Eden. They do deals with killer whales down there. This community that's sitting aside me have had relationships to go back to tell the stories of how whaling industries were founded in this country. Not just thieving all of our seafood today. So if you're not aware, I'd say to you, learn some more from this mob. If you don't today, look them up. Find out about their connections, how they've been fishing since before Cook, and they've been fishing ever since. So I might open up to the floor now, uncles, to see who's got some questions for you. Use this last 10 minutes. But again, thank you so much, uncles, for what you're doing, leading the way, getting us back. I just share with my first cousin Bernard, if he's listening or his grandkids are around. Bernard did over 3 years up home around Port Macquarie for getting done for prawning, getting done for abalones, fishing for our family. He was the only one who didn't have the commercial licence. But I remember starkly my nan serving it up to fishing inspectors for locking up her grandson for feeding his mob. And I'm proud they're doing what they're doing now so we don't have any more like my cousin doing time just for feeding their people. Much love to Bernie Rumble, if any of the mob out there know him. But I'll go to the floor now. Any questions? No, you're exempt, sorry. Sorry, we've got only Lola.
Yes. I'm a Yurrabara South Sea Island woman from Queensland. I'm a refugee from Queensland. We have the same issues up there. But I was wondering too, down the South Coast, you had the I suppose, the most seagrass down there. We're talking about this fish, but we need all the vegetation. What's that like now with the seagrass?
Yeah, there's all different lots of seagrass. In Wagga, where we run our tour, there's what's called Posidonia australis. We call it strapweed because it looks like the old man's belt. Well, that only grows in certain healthy places along the east coast. And Wagga Inlet is one of the few places that is still healthy there. But it was destroyed because of impact of colonisation, rock wall building, dredging and stuff, and nearly wiped it out along the coast. And we even got a stingray that's moved down the south coast into Wagga that's only found in Lapa or Botany Bay. And they only live in healthy water too, so you can imagine, there's some of the things, but the main problem now is with the kelp in our boundary of our sea country is, like we said, 50% of our reefs on the south coast is gone. And we've already proven that this problem can be reversed. It just needs some dollars put in there. So our organisation is called Jungar Land and Water Aboriginal Corporation. We set that corporation up so we could create jobs and employment and education and educate the wider community about fishing rights on the south coast. And so we got a scientific dive team that does research on them sea urchins. And so just imagine if you was like this stage here, and back to the chairs there and back to the end of that stage, we went out, our divers went in that area and pulled out 7 tonne of sea urchins just in that little boundary. And then they went back 6 weeks later and it showed that the kelp can grow back. So that's an example of, but we've got to act now because these sea urchins are just, exploded. And so that's a good example of you can save it. And then we've got a lady down there who can spawn the kelp. So our plan is, our restoration plan is put our divers in the water, stop chasing them around and sending them to jail, put the money back into and put our divers in the water to remove the sea urchins. The good sea urchins, they can be sold. The waste can be turned into fertiliser, and then if we remove them, the kelp can grow back, and then we can start reseeding. So we're working with other communities on the East Coast, part of our nation, Eden. They're looking at a nursery and hatchery. So if we can fix our reefs back up, we can reseed it and bring that abalone industry that they've nearly destroyed back to our community.
That means too, so if we don't do that, that means the water's become contaminated, and that means that it's going to affect not just Aboriginal people, it's going to affect all Australians. And then, as I say, if we ruin the water, everyone will have to do like Singapore and start converting urine into fresh water.
And that's right, and that was the whole idea of, that inquiry and us doing that White Rock, so the wider public can see it, see the damage right down to the node. Like you come down the South Coast, it's the most beautiful country in the world, and I'm not saying that because I live there and that's part of my country, but it is beautiful. But if you stick your head under the water and seen it out when we seen it growing up and how healthy it was and you've seen it today, you'd be disgusted, and that's what the problem is. So another program that we do is called Dive and Draw, and it's a kids program. So we put an underwater drone in the water, and then we can sit up in the classroom, and then the kids will look like they're diving, and they can tell us which way to move the camera, and we can talk to them. But at the same time, we're educating them, and and their parents won't leave the room. They sit there. It's like they're in the water diving with them. So it's a great education, and that's the problem. Everybody, and I've been lobbying councils, our shire councils, and because we've got 6 shires in our boundary of our native title, and I've been lobbying them to say, like, you need to get on board here. Like, we've got over 100,000 recreational fishermen that come down the South Coast to fish, and if there's no kelp there and there's no reef, there's going to be no fish, they're not going to come and stay in your motel and eat at your restaurant. This is everybody's problem. If you care about the country where you live, it's everybody's problem, and that's the message we're trying to get out.
Yeah, just a quick thing too. The Powerhouse Museum has actually approached us and they want to do a story on us, which they've been doing, the new Powerhouse Museum. So when the Powerhouse Museum does actually open out of Parramatta, you'll see our corporation up there, and it has a good explanation of what we've been doing on the South Coast in regards to sea urchins and our plight in regards to fisheries as well. So yeah, when you go there, have a good look and immerse yourself in the Powerhouse Museum when it opens up.
Yeah, hello. My name's Brumwyn Penrith. You know, my bloodline goes to the coast. You probably know better than I do. I just want to talk about a time when my cousin Kevin Smith, bless him, used to bring us up abalone and lobsters from the coast. And because we was always asking for more. And that's when I first realised that, he was limited, and he probably mungied them anyway. He was limited about the amount that he could bring. And of course I knew the stories of people, the fellows going to getting sent to Cooma every 6 months for diving and that. But I just wondered now how many. So, very personal question. How many lobsters are you allowed? I got a couple of divers, a couple of my grandkids grew up at Walluga and can dive. How many lobsters are you allowed to take nowadays?
You there? Yeah, so that fighting we done, right, with fisheries and exposed that they discriminated against that native. They actually admitted, I had a meeting with them in December, Morgan, and they actually admitted that they'd managed the system wrong, and starting to talk this year about putting funding into restoration. But the damage, like you're saying with the lobsters, I'll tell you some of the stories like them sea urchins, our parents or family handed them fishing sites down to us. We had an obligation to look after them fishing sites. So the sites that I grew up with, my father showed me where them lobster nests was. And I go back and he used to always say, you make sure you look after that lobster nest, because if you damage that lobster nest, them lobsters will never come back. And so we did. We were taught that. You know, we taught our kids to dive on our backs. You know, we followed the same thing that they taught us. But now we go to them places now, some of them nests, the sea urchins have blocked them holes up so they can't come there. And we know how the lobsters work. You know, they start on the shelf in November and they walk. They walk to the coast. Like, we got blackfella knowledge too. You know, we've been doing this for thousands of years and we know when the lobsters are there and when they're not. And as I'm saying, the sea urchins have really, you know, killed our culture. But if it's not really the sea urchins, it's the way it was managed by government. New South Wales Fisheries managed our waters, our way of resources wrong, and they finally admitted it, because the abalone industry, they're allowed to take 100 tonne a year. They're down to 88 tonne a year. They can't even get their quota anymore because their sea urchins are taken over, and so this is why they want to buy out, and it's wrong. We know that fisheries have been in bed with the government. I mean, I think the abalone industry runs the fishing industry down the South Coast. You know?
Just a thing, you just asked about how many you're allowed to take. Look, put it this way. On the last year, fisheries came down and tried to actually put a bag limit on us. They actually said, look, you know, if you want, you can take as many as you like, but your extended family, they will actually require a bag limit, which we thought was very inappropriate, because that creates infighting, and we didn't want that to happen. So we lobbied against them to say that no, it's not the right thing to do. So technically, Indigenous are allowed to take whatever they like because it's their resource.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. We had to fight for that and make them accountable. And that's what I'm saying. That section of that Native Title Act gave us that right. And that's what they kept on using or policing our mob when they didn't know about it. And that's why and as I said, the hardest thing was educating our own community. You're not a poacher, you're a culture fisherman. Because they were even call themselves poachers when they're the white fellow. And the discrimination that caused on the South Coast between the whole wider community, every time they seen a black fella, fisheries even had a line where you could ring up, if they seen a black fella down there diving, you could ring up and dob in a poacher and get a $1,000 reward. And if they didn't answer the phone, they went to the answering machine, is he Australian, Asian or Aboriginal? That's how bad it is. That's how bad it was. You know, so, but getting back to the point, if you're a member of that South Coast Native Title claim, you can take whatever you like. But we don't say take whatever you like. We say take, you know, your culture catch and look after it.
Oh, look, thanks so much, Hunks. Thanks everyone for today, for being here, to hear the story of Aboriginal cultural rights. And I hope, as you heard, it's not just a line in the water, it's much, much more. It's our economics, it's our cultural identity, particularly for us coastal mob. You know, and as a Gurri, you know, we don't get by unless that mullet starts running around March and starts kicking things off. We know when to pop up around August, maybe an oyster or two will start appearing. But if we don't fight for those rights, we won't continue into the future our cultural practice. And one of the first things I got to notice and acknowledge, my granddaughters were here today. Well, their mother knows the first thing you learn is fishing. You know, and it's intertwined with who we are as coastal people. So thanks, uncles. Keep fighting, and hopefully we get to enjoy these things again soon. And I'll have a bag of ab any day. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it back to the panel to get back to where we was. I might change it up, and go from left to right this time. Sorry, right to left. I got myself back to front there. Oh, sorry, I just acknowledged my father's from Limerick in Ireland, so sometimes we get a bit backwards over that way of earth. Somehow they told us that, you know, Gaelics weren't people. Well, I just tell you, my Gaelic message to everyone down in this part of the world, the real people are our mob. Let's listen to the real people, and that's the way we get ahead. So without further ado, I'm going to walk across the stage, have a yarn to a deadly young fella who's leading a campaign to hold up one of the largest coal mines in this country. I just want to acknowledge that his father also been part of this movement. He inherits that role, responsibility, fighting for country. This fella may have been 5 straight years, but I know with his father it's near 20-odd years they've been campaigning, and I'll just throw it over to you now, my brother.
Cheers, brother. Watamuli, everyone. My name's Gurridyula. I've come out of the bush, floodwaters, get through that, to get here to tell you how we've been doing it, you know. We've been fighting for years, not only just against this one mining company, but been fighting for land rights my whole life, basically. Every 26th of January, you know, there would be a Invasion Day rally, you know, and I'd be going to these things and they'd be talking about land rights, and I would grow up thinking about land rights. And then they gave us native title. And native title wasn't land rights. Native title was rights to sell land. It wasn't rights to land. And so I thought, well, this system is flawed. And they used that same native title system to dispossess us and take us off the map, basically. So they wiped our native title from us. They fractured our community and then said that we can't form a community just so they could destabilise it and destroy our native title claim, because we sit on some of the biggest coal reserves in the world, basically, and they can't have unruly Aboriginals with that much money at stake. So they destroyed our claim, but we basically jumped off ship. I was in the native title courts, and I said to the same judge that just so happens to be my old man's judges for the last 5 federal court cases that he tried to run, and the same judge threw out his case, and he lost 5 of those federal court cases and then awarded costs to the mining company, so he got bankrupted for $675,000 in lawyers' costs to the mining company when this dude's a billionaire. And so we get the same native title judge. And in that courtroom, I sat there and I said to the judge, and I turned around and I said, I don't subscribe to this shambolic native title system. I'm only here to tell you who I am. And when I'm finished from here, I'm getting up and I'm going back to country where I came from to this interview right now in the courtroom. And so they destroyed our native title, and we circumnavigated that. Because we have the Queensland Human Rights Act, we have the right to not be forcefully assimilated. So that means I don't have to understand their acts and legislations of anything else. That if I choose the right to sit down and have a fire, then that's my right. And no one else can take that right from me, and I'll continue. And it's become a ADHD hyper-focus thing for me, you know, I need to do it. And so that's how I managed to push through torrential rains, through flooding that we've had, this biggest floods that we've had this year. You know, trekking through water just to bring logs in, just to put onto the fire. And people say, why are you doing it? Because I said, well, it's a protracted war against the mining company, and every plane that flies in sees that fire burning, and something inside them goes, someone's there. A fire is the oldest symbol of occupation, because innately inside of all of us, we know, because it's inbuilt in us since the beginning of time when we could first make fire. There's only 2 ways there's fire. One's from nature, from lightning strikes, and the other one's from human-induced. So someone had to make it, and if you just see a fire burning there, something inside of you tells you, oh, there's someone there. So it's a psychological protracted war that I'm playing on the mine site, and that's why they have such a high turnover. And so every log that they've knocked down of them old gidgee trees that are hundreds of years old to make tracks, I chop them up and I say, this is your last hurrah, old fella, because you'll get to give them the middle finger right in front of the camp, and they have to look at that when they fly in and they see that log burning and they know that somebody's home. And we've managed to do something that has been impossible to do because mining is God in this country above all else. And they will destroy this place and allow companies to destroy this place because they've had the right to do it. The Human Rights Act had basically enshrined our rights because we've always had the rights. It's just the Human Rights Act recognised those rights now. And those rights now are to be, well, you can't limit our rights, and if I want to have a fire, I can have a fire if I want to. And because where we are, we're sitting on one half of the mining lease, and that's about 12,000 hectares of untouched bushland mostly. And we're talking about trees that are like 600-700-year-old box trees that you don't see everywhere. And there's something worth saving, you know. It's like, if I'm ever going to do something honourable in my life, at least it's honourable to the animals. Because at least the animals aren't going to turn around and say, I hate you, like a human can. You know, the humans can turn on you tomorrow, but animals, they won't turn on you. They will always remember you. And so I do it for the animals. I don't do it mostly because of my family. I do it because it's a responsibility to nature. Because if I don't burn that area off, how are the little finches going to come and get the new seeds off the ground? You know, how is the betongs going to get their little fungus that grows off the roots that happens from when you burn off? That I have a responsibility now. And then what they've done is they've created a monster by trying to fight against us. And I'm the monster. I might not look, hopefully I don't look it, but what they don't realise is they've given me the opportunity to be able to reach deep down inside of myself and say, what is it? What is it to be Aboriginal? And what is it to be a part of land and country? And when you dig your feet into the ground and your hands into the ground and you spend weeks by a fire, and it does things to you, months and months and months, sitting there, getting up, only to go to the toilet and switch over with family and then get back and sit in this fire. I spend months. And it almost talks to you. And so through that power, it's become a situation now where the police tried to remove us once before from the mining, it was a pastoral lease that's still a part of the mining area. And so they illegally removed us. Because the funny thing about native title is if you don't have native title but you're applying, then you can go on to any pastoral lease and you don't need permission from the owner. But the moment that you get a determination is the moment that you need permission from the landholder. Why is that? Because you've entered into a contract. So what we did is because we were in the process of a native title bid before I actually we jumped off the boat before the boat crashed into nothing, you know, and they threw our native title out. So we ended up just taking land back. We just said, okay, well, we're going to just go out and try it. And they didn't come to remove me. They did it once, and then we put a human rights complaint in to the Human Rights Commissioner. 6 months go past, and then they say, okay, well, you've got a case. So we end up having a mediation with the Queensland Police and with the Human Rights Commission, and the Human Rights Commissioner is saying, well, you limited 5 of their rights. And so the police were like, oh, no, they had to bring in Crown lawyers. Crown lawyers said, well, we don't know whose land it is. Because we said, well, where's the deeds and titles? How can you assume that you own the property that you could even exclude us from the property to begin with? And then the Crown lawyers said, well, we don't know whose land it actually is. We can't prove it. So then the police said, well, what do you want? And we said, well, we want basically a letter of apology. But what it said in there was, we acknowledge Mr. Adrian Burugaba, which is my old man, represents a group of Wangan and Yagalingu people aggrieved by Adani's occupation of their tribal homelands. What they had done was inadvertently circumnavigate around native title, and they had recognised us as the people from the Queensland Police. And I waved that in front of their face, saying, like... And so what that did was, that gave us the leeway in between the police and the government. Because the only person that's coming to move you, if you're an Aboriginal person, you want to go back to your country, the only one that will move you is the one with the gun. It's not the man with the suits and the politicians, it's the ones with the guns. Because they'll force you to leave. So if you already get into a position where the police then go, well, that's your argument, you have to sort that out, taking them to court. So you end them in this perpetual cycle of they don't want to take me to court because it'll cost money. And so now the police refuse to do anything. They said, well, you've got to take them to court. They won't take me to court because the land court has already made a decision. They said that you can't limit human rights for economic benefit. So what are you going to move me for, mate? Oh, because I want to put a mine there? Well, that's for economic benefit. Sorry, you can't move me then. So they're going to lose. And if they do lose in the court, then that's game over. We won. And so they all know what the game is, and they're all salty at me because I beat them at their own game. But the great thing about it is I can have a smile on my face, and I did it without anger. And that's what I'm saying to other Aboriginal people out there. How you heal your trauma is you go back to country and I say, I'm not leaving. I've got nothing else to do with my life other than sit right here. And you can't tell me that I can't sit right here. Otherwise, prove it in court. Arrest me right now, I won't sign bail, and you'll have to process me the next judge that comes up in the court. Process me. I know you'll throw it out because you're not going to run a trespass because you can't prove who the owners are. So you'll throw it out, then I'll just go back to the same place and I'll sit down. I was like, but what is this, double jeopardy? Well, what is this? You're going to charge me for the same crime that the judge already just threw it out? So you keep doing that until the police just go, we don't want to deal with this anymore. Once the police say they don't want to deal with it and they've recognised that you're from there, you won your freedom. And I can say that there's only a very small amount of people in this country that has ever tasted real freedom in this country. And that's how you do it. You do it, you tire them out. They think that you're going to tire out. No, this is your life. There's generations upon generations upon generations of people that have taken care of your homelands before you. That is your responsibility too to look after those homelands. And anybody else who is a part of your community, doesn't matter if they're Aboriginal or not, if they're here to help you in your homelands to look after them, then that's your community too. Because they then have a connection to where they live. So don't feel like everything is lost. Because I grew up in a city. I didn't grow up where like I am now. But now I live in the bush. I don't ever wear shoes usually, you know. And I would rather not be anywhere else, you know. I'm grateful that I grew up in a city because I learnt their laws. And the only way to beat them is to know... The only way to beat your enemy is to know everything about your enemy. They can't beat me because they don't know me. I'm too eccentric and too random for them to try and pin me down and try and figure out who I am. And that's a danger to them because what happens is they realise that I have the ability to awaken these core things inside of other Aboriginal people to say, wake up. You don't have to be a slave to the system. You're never homeless if you're on country. They've just tricked you to believe that a house is home. But a house is just a concrete structure to keep you in your cage because you still got to come back to your cage because without your cage you feel homeless. But you don't feel homeless if you're amongst the trees that are in your tribal homelands and the animals that are there because that's what makes you feel at home. So, thank you.
Oh, thank you, brother. Now, again, we're just going to throw across to each speaking group, and at the end, we'll use the best of the time available for Q&A at the end. Is that okay? Got no choice. Sorry, I've got to run it like this. Now, we're now going to speak about, the Yidinji, the government in Cairns, the local people of Cairns, how they've set up their governance, leading the way. Please share with us more about Yidinji, brother.
Thank you, Nathan. I really enjoy listening to brother and everyone else, because there's when you enter this space that we're calling sovereignty, the real world is the unseen world, the spiritual world. So to hear people who are passionate, articulate, this is, when you got the truth, you don't need these guns and all those things. So it's really good to hear people speak from the heart and speak truth, because it is exactly what the world needs. And we want to carry on that conversation, because I know that native title gets mixed responses everywhere. How the Yidinji used it was the native title determination. The Federal Court of Australia has a number of determinations on what they would say is Cairns or Far North Queensland. And it's determined on those pieces of paper. The Federal Court says Yidinji owns the land pursuant to their law. So when these things are made, then that's what I'm saying. When I gave all that stuff back to go and live on Yidinji territory and to do what brother's doing, we went one step further in terms of creating our piece of paper. And that's where your land titles or your mining tenements are created. Do you have one of these to be here, Mr. Adani or Mr. Smith or Mr. Jones? Have you got one of these? Or have you got this or that? And that's where that governance, I keep talking about it, but that administration office is really important, because Australia has to decolonise, but what are they going to decolonise to? There has to be a mechanism, and that is the administrative entity for that territory. In this case, Yidinji government. I can speak about that. So the federal court, we just said, well, the federal court says Yidinji own the land pursuant to Yidinji law. So under this law here, under the Yidinji Crown, we own the land. Is that right? Okay. Yidinji have a system of land tenure. That's in the federal court. Thanks very much. Here's our land titles. Where's yours? Yidinji has a system of dispute resolution. There's our court. They have been there before Cook, and they're still here today. That's what the federal court, Justice Dowsett, said. So it also says in there that I come here today to not give the Yidinji anything. Instead, I come here to acknowledge the native title that they possess. So even the judge is saying that he can't give what he doesn't possess, but he's acknowledging Yidinji's ability to name country. Gimoy, Gurridyula, Mullumbara, all these different names for different parts of Cairns, that's the native title. That's the original title that we've come back to our office to create. So you notice around the world that it's not Peking anymore, it's Beijing. So all those naming conventions and protocols are now returned back to the original titles or the original native title. But you can't have that inside of Australia because we're not Indigenous Australians as Yidinji. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags are Australian flags and they belong inside of Australia. And because Australia doesn't have a connection to country or a treaty with us or whatever you want to call it, we had to create our own flag. So we have a Yidinji flag. We don't have the Aboriginal or the Torres Strait Islanders because it's foreign to us. That's not ours. Someone else made that inside of Australia. So there's little things that when you're looking at it from a Yidinji lens, obviously everyone else has got differing opinions, that's fine. But we're saying use that to your advantage. There's all this evidence out there, whether it's native title or UNDRIP is another one, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. It's not the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Australians, because Australia will say, no, that's just an aspirational document. But if it's Yidinji, from our capacity, our context, 100%, well, why did you sign it? We never hold a gun to your head to sign that Yidinji can set up their own government, their own institutions. Article 33 says this, we can identify. Article 36 says, we can cross borders on a passport for economic, spiritual, social reasons, whatever it may be. So that's why I think it's really important that people have a look at governance, and everyone's used to it. People do their taxes and they'll have house rules, take the rubbish out on a Wednesday, whatever. It doesn't have to be like the rest of the world, and the Yidinji law isn't like that at all. There's quite a number of simple things that we've got. Our Education Act or all these things. But there's some things that are really good written law, and we just copy it. And the Reserve Bank Act is one of them. Same as Australia, we just took it out and put Yidinji and changed it a bit. And they say, well, you can't do that. Well, why not? Use it like that. So if it's good for you, it's good for us. So we created our central bank digital currency, our own digital ID. You can download the app off Play Store if you want. Just type in SSID Yidinji and it'll come up there. If you become a citizen, it's free. And we have all those things there. The most important thing is that we're always moving ahead, because we think that sovereignty for us may take an invisible manifestation. So, as far as I know, we're the only ones on the planet with our own computer operating system. We don't use Apple, we don't use Microsoft, Apple and those ones. But we've got our own called Jubu, which means walking stick. You can carry it around in your pocket, and it's an operating system, Linux-based, privacy, security, and very, very focused on those things, because we want our mobs to have their stories or whatever they want safe on that system. Whereas there might be other things on other systems that might spy on you, whatever, all that kind of stuff. So we're looking really at it, how can we make Yidinji the leader in the digital space? So with our digital wallet and central bank digital currency, for example, our partners advises central bank that controls all the central banks. And that's a bank called the Bank for International Settlements. So our technology, our partner, advises the BIS on offline payments and things like that. So we're totally looking at it from outside of Australia, saying, okay, well, Australia, you've said this, this and this. And I think that's the reason why the Supreme Court of Queensland, for example, on opening the law ceremony day, usually they have it, it's an English Westminster system where they have it in a church and they have the judges and all that kind of stuff. But at home, it's the only place in Australia that we know of where it happens outside of a church. Our elders are on one side, and the new judges and magistrates that are holding office come in and they take their gowns off and their robes. If you type in Cairns Courthouse on YouTube, you can have a look at that ceremony right now. And it'll see this year, our Yidinji national flag was the only one flying. There were no other flags. Because we said, if you're going to fly our national flag, then this is who we are. And they did. So I think it's more, for me, about taking ownership and control of that, using all the courts and everything else to instruct whoever it is, whether it's a Commonwealth or the state of Queensland, to benefit your society and your people. And that's where I think sometimes it's, because we've been all traumatised. Like, I don't even know who the enemy was. Like, we're trying to work things out, right? This is when we first started going into this place. Is it the communists? Is it this or what? We didn't know who was, behind the scenes of all this stuff, or the global elites. But it's a spiritual power. These things are influencing political leaders around the world. So we know that's true, So that's where I come from, and when we talking about administration and government, it's not the law, because the law is sitting in front of me here. And these other mob, whoever you are, that's the law. Their law, look, another one fellow just coming in now. So that's what I'm saying. The written law is to tell the rest of the world on how to identify and how Yidinji identifies. This is who we are. This is where our territory is. We have a permanent population, and as the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Trade, we have the ability to enter into foreign relations. So they're the things that we help other nations to do, and we do it for free. I love doing it. It's the best job ever. I don't get paid for it. I get paid in sovereign Yidinji dollars, but because we don't have some sort of agreement to enter into the international banking system, we're using it amongst ourselves at the moment. But that time will come, and we're hoping that all the nations can get ready in that sense to interact and to participate on a global level in their true capacity. So thanks.
Harris, this one, sir. Too deadly, you're dingy. Now, the last group we'd like to hear some more about from this morning, Uncle, certainly. Hear some more about what you fellas are doing up that way. Certainly, yeah, shines a light on everyone when we can hear more about what you're doing. So please, continue where we started this morning, talking about your group model up there in the NT on bringing everyone back through culture and law. Grab that mic there. Oh, you got one? Sweet, Uncle.
Yo. Yeah, I'll try not to repeat from this morning's talk, but it's pretty much along the same lines of what these good men have been doing. And I just want to pay respect, not just to the good people sitting in front of me, but to the people who have been fighting in this space for a very, very long time. You mentioned a lot of them earlier, brother, and a lot of them have left us, and there's still a lot behind. And, you know, those good people have always shared the one thing that we all need to stand with, and that's just the truth. The truth of where we're at as a nation. We're still a very little small mind country. We're not even a nation, because a nation is not a nation until its people are walking in unison, and we're as divided as we could be. So what we're trying to do, without interfering with what other people are doing in this space, is just work under our law, work under our Gurridyula. And I just want to pay respect to Adrian and his son here, because they're actually doing something very powerful, which is occupying. We don't need to ask for something that we already own. We don't need to seek any approval from their courts that gives us our sovereignty. We are all sovereign tribes to our tribal lands, end of story. And we only speak for our tribal lands. So I can't speak for their country, but I learn from them. I learn from everything they're doing. But the most important ones that we learn from, and the most important ones that guide us, is sitting right next to me. We all talk about culture, we all talk about law, we all talk about Gurridyula, we all talk about it. But what is it? And on the coastline, we've been massacred to the point where we've lost so much of that knowledge that we're holding on to it by the edge of our knuckles, our skin. We are just holding on to the most ancient knowledge, the most ancient culture on the planet. And my uncle here is testament to that. He didn't meet a white man until 60 years ago. He was living in nature. And yesterday we had, it was a beautiful day, but it was also a sad story. We met our auntie here, whose father, just like my uncle, was ripped out of the bush when he was 7 years old, living in nature. And her story was his story, but her story was here. His story came later in the desert. Because if the white man liked the desert as much as he likes the salt water, we'd have no language in the desert, and everyone around here would be singing and dancing and holding that Gurridyula. But that's not what happened. They started out and worked their way in. The Pindabi were the last ones that they tried to massacre. And they defeated the Redcoats. They defeated them, and they pushed them away because they were fierce, they were hard, and they were living in the harshest environments. And they still are. And my uncle holds that knowledge. He is the leader of not only the nation, of our tribal nation, the Pindabi, but he is the cultural knowledge holder, and him along with about 20 other Jilpis, that makes up our council. That's our governing body. That's our parliament. That's our court. That's our decision makers over everything that we decide. So I'm a lot like Murrumu. I'm just a spokesperson for the council, but they guide everything. They make every decision. And because we're operating under our ancient law, we talked about it earlier, our sister raised the question, what do you do about corruption and fraud? And we know that there's greed and corruption and fraud amongst all people, and it's crept into our society as well. But the structure that we've established under our law, you cannot have corruption, you cannot have fraud, you cannot have nepotism, you cannot have treason. because everything is in the middle. And like my brother said, it's all around the fire, and you can't hide. That's where the truth sits. So our model is going back to the ancient to guide us in the new, and to set up a structure so that we can work with our other tribal councils, not just here but around the world. And that's why we've been establishing treaties, not because we need to. We already have an ancient treaty, not just here but around the planet. You know, the Chinese used to come and trade with us, you know, for over 500 years ago. You know, all of the Asias, all of the Africas, all of the Middle East, they all travelled here for knowledge. They all travelled here to trade. So we already have our ancient treaties, our ancient trade routes, and that's what's been cut off from all tribal nations of the planet. So we've reached out to tribes around Australia and done treaties, but we've also reached out to foreign tribes around the planet. And we're signing treaties with the Americas, with the Pacific Islanders, with everybody to come together just to stand under our law to protect Mother Earth. Because I mentioned earlier, 2/3 of the planet was invaded by the Dutch and the English, and they were all indigenous cultures. So if we can bring 2/3 back together, then Mother Earth has got a chance, and our future generations have a chance. I've been in this fight for a long time, and the talk that went on before, I just want to acknowledge the speakers before. Very emotional, very deep, and very real. The deaths in custody, the high incarceration rates, the stolen children, all of those things aren't talk of the past. They're all things we're living with every day. I ran a youth program for 20 years, stopping kids from going to prison, stopping them from suiciding, and helping them just turn their life around. Our program got cut because we exposed the child abuse in the system and the abuse in the system. And that's when I took my gloves off. I was never in the political field. I was always in the social change, keeping our babies alive. But when they stopped us from helping our children, I realised that there was something really, really wrong. And that's when I went in search of who are they. And that's when we discovered, well, we didn't discover, through information like Adrian has been talking for 20, 30 years. Other great people in the fight have been talking for 20, 30 years. They've been yelling out and trying to educate us all. And I'm grateful to these leaders, right? So what the truth is there is no government here. There's only a corporation, and it's committing genocide against the oldest living culture on the planet. And if we're going to stand up as a nation and grow as a nation, then we have to unite together to set up something healthy, because what we've got in front of us now is unhealthy. It's not only unhealthy for the tribal people, but now the rest of the country realises it's unhealthy for them as well, all right, because you've become targets through the lies of the scamdemic and everything else that's going on, all right? So we're all under attack here. Now you're on the ship with us, right? And we all got to create a life raft to jump to, because this ship's going down. It's toxic. It's infested with parasites. And the only way that we're going to have a future is if we unite as tribal people, and we unite as a country, and we unite as humanity. Forget about your colour. Forget about your race. Forget about your bloodline. We are all humans. And it's like my uncle Juma from Darwin taught me. Everybody left from a sacred site up there to go to their promised lands. And he says it all the time. You've all returned to fix what was broken from when you left. Because when you left with strong law. And the law's been broken, planetary. So we need to bring it back into balance. And my uncle's really shy, but I want him to say something to you, so I really need to try and hand it over. Uncle.
Oh. Yeah. I was at Kinto. I didn't know the law when I was a young fella. But I've been working through the government and working for Russian long time. I didn't know someone has been doing something for us, for Aboriginal people. And after that, I recognized, hey, someone, it was government doing something like a presentation for himself, not for Aboriginal people. That's why I've been picked this mind myself, and I talk to all the elders and workers. I must gotta go around and let them know. Everybody can know me, what I'm doing. I'm working for law and, for right. And that's why I've been thinking better. I've been topping that. I went there all around the Australian area. I've been going around and talking to community and city. And I'm here with my friend from Sydney. Yes. You have got to recognize what Lurnpa said. And you got a right to say and right to know for anything else what he said. You are? You are.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So we're in the process of finalising the structure of our governance so that we can self-determine and look after our own affairs, setting up our own healthy industries that sustain families, put families back on land, because the whole intention of the government is to force people into communities. If you look at his tribal map and you go onto the Northern Territory Government's Minerals and Exploration website, if that's the land mass, there's a little box like that, and the rest has applications all over it. That's the intention. Push everyone into the box, chuck some alcohol and drugs in there, put a prison in there, and then rape and pillage. The Westerners have been kicked out of Africa. They're coming for our lands now. They're coming for his lands now. They have plans to put railways all the way through the desert. The next rape and pillage is coming, and it's all about greed. It's got nothing to do with humanitarian. Brother, we've got an auntie up there with her hand up. Can we? Oh, sorry, auntie. Yeah, I'm done, brother. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Unc. Thanks, uncles. So much for sharing your stories, your journey, the various different things you're doing across this country on really practicing sovereignty. And I hope that's what we're all hearing here today. They're examples of people who are practicing sovereignty, whether that's reoccupying their lands, whether that's representing themselves in the public, or whether that's doing the hard yards culturally to get around together when you hear about this Waddy model of getting all the mob together to work out what to do. So thanks very much, you panellists today. Love hearing it, inspiring, raises the spirit. As I said, as a Biripai Thungati, we had native title pushed on us. Native title is not land rights. Land rights ain't even our rights. We've still got a way to go to get to what we deserve. My old people had that vision. We're equal human beings. They believe this island's part of the first connected place of the land. So in our kapara, the story is we're all once one. Not our fault they break off them islands, whether they went south, north, west or whatever. But as we come back together, we need to inspire each other to overcome. Thanks very much. Before I throw to the floor now. And the best thing I got is, that's me Auntie Mari over there, I can see her. The founder of Koori Radio, Auntie Mari Bennett. I'm coming to you, Aunt. You missed it. Auntie Mari, I'm behind you. I'm the Black Jerry Springer, Aunt. I've got to confess, but firstly, this is my mum's best mate. Mum passed away last year. Lost my mother, but Auntie Mari, she inspired me. She used to set up radio in empty houses around the block. Then a man named Tiger Bales come along, and today you have Koori Radio. But that's the start of it. She's here. And Karma Radio as well.
Right. There's lots of lights here, but yes. I'm from the Barkindji people of New South Wales, Lake Mungo, and the Dalapon people of East Arnhem Land. I'm a stolen generation. Born on Bathurst Island, Tiwi, in the Arafura Sea. Some time ago, back in the Northern Territory, I was a field officer with the Department of Community Development. And I was there, and we worked with the ABC. I was the ABC's Aboriginal Media Advisor. First one, again, in the Northern Territory. What happened was we needed something in the remote areas for our children. They were there during the days, during the holidays, and they needed something to do. So I went back to the department and I wrote up a recommendation that we should house all the schools in the Northern Territory with video production units, like a monitor, a camera, stock, VHS player. And I got fired over that because I recommended freedom, break the chains of apartheid. So I copped it, and my uncle that was with me, working with the department, he resigned because he didn't like the way they spoke to me, lawman. So he said to me, "You're going to do this yourself, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." So I did. I wrote the recommendations to house all the schools in the Northern Territory in the remote areas with that unit. And from there, we were up against a lot of things. It happened. We got those units into those schools, and because I wrote that paper, I had to register myself under the Small Business Act of Australia. So under the 76 Land Rights Act Northern Territory, I registered the remote area media, the first Aboriginal company. I registered under the Small Business Act of Australia under the 76 Land Rights Act Northern Territory. And from then on, Aboriginal communication came to being. We set up a lot of stuff in the Northern Territory because there was nothing there for the people. And Jamal, I want to say to you, in 1985, the Labor Party under Bob Hawke, I'd already had my unit going, my little video low band production unit, low band editing suite. And we done a lot of work in the remote areas. But the big one was we were sitting at home in Darwin and Larrakia, and we get this phone call early morning from the chairman of the Central Land Council, CLC, Northern Territory. And what they told us, that the Labor Party under Clive Holding gave us 2 weeks. Out of the blue, we didn't know anything. 2 weeks to answer Caucus whether we wanted to keep the 76 Land Rights Act or accept the native title. What happened was they hired me. The traditional owners of the Northern Territory 27 communities hired me and my little production unit to answer Caucus. So Kuminjay Stanley Strutton, chairman of the CLC, took my brother, my ex-husband, who was Matt Peacock, and they flew back to Alice Springs with his board, and we had to go fast. We were down 2 days after the 2 weeks that we had given by Caucus, by the Labor Party, that they were going to abolish the 76 Land Rights Act. We'd have none of this today. So the camera crew went with the chairman and his board, and what we had to do was 27 communities. No money, nothing. I had 10 grand. We had 10 grand to our little company, so I put that on the table. We hired 2 Cherokee twin engines, 2 pilots, fuel for 2 weeks, and we hit the skies and the communities, 27 of them. We done the documentary. Caucus thought we weren't going to come through with it. I'm the executive producer. We sat there all that night when they got back, and we went through all the documentaries, the tapes, all the evidence of 27 lawmen saying, "Yappa, one law." They told us that the meeting was Caucus. We came back Thursday. Thursday night we edited. Friday morning we had to meet full council of the 3 chairs, Northern, Central and Tiwi Land Councils. We walked in, we showed them the footage that we put together, and we didn't know one word. We had to bring a lawman in to tell us what this one word was when we were editing. At the end of 27 communities, every lawman, every traditional owner said, "Yappa, one law, black fella." We were tricked by Caucus, by the Labor Party. We got approval on Friday by the full council. Saturday morning, in came the cronies to bully me to hand the tapes over to them. I told them, no, I own the footage until we finish the documentary for Caucus. Until my job is finished, I own them. What happened? We had no money. Caucus was meeting on Sunday at 11 o'clock in Canberra, Sunday night. Monday morning, they told us it was. Someone got that documentary down, the copy of the VHS that we ran off the master. We had one copy of VHS off the master, one law. They took it down, someone snuck it down. They said, "Quick, go to camp, go to the house. Caucus is meeting tonight at 11 o'clock, Sunday night." They told us Monday morning. When they put the VHS copy into the monitor, the picture was all black. And then 2 words came flying out of that black scene, and it says, "One law, yappa, black fella." And this was their answer. Kumanjay Wanjak Marika was the first vision. At his country, sitting on the beach with his people, a big fire. Yeah, "Mr. Minister," this is to Clyde Holding. "Mr. Minister, we will keep the 76 Land Rights Act and we will burn your new paper like we burned the clothes of a dead man." Yappa. That saved the 76 Land Rights Act, and that's why we're still here today. It was 27 lawmen that came to our aid and to the aids of Aboriginal people and Australia. Clyde Holding, I took him on twice, 4 times. Firstly, he asked me to surrender my little company. Would I submit to the Department of Aboriginal Affairs? And I said, "Oh, Mr. Holding," I wasn't political then, I'm spiritual. And I say to him, "I'm sorry, Mr. Holding, I can't submit my paper to the Department of Aboriginal Affairs, I registered under the Small Business Act of Australia, and I'm the first black fella to do it under the 76 Land Rights Act. That's why we're here today, because of 27, and you know what? I've got to tell you the end of it. I'll tell you how we paid for it. We gave up our wet season supplies for 6 months. That's what we did. You want to fight us black fellas? Well, you're picking on the wrong people when there's people like the Njamu here. We are the law of this country, and we won't surrender.
Thank you, Anima. Thank you.
There is one more thing I want to say. We're going to get rid of the apartheid system that they developed here in Australia to genocide Aboriginal Australia and implemented it to South Africa. Let's get rid of it, Australia.
Oh, thanks, Anima. Those who aren't aware, aren't referring to the White Australia policy. We lead the way in racism. We lead the way in bad health, mental health. We've got the highest sufferings of any population on earth. We lock up more than anyone on earth. We're the most unhealthy people on earth. And well said, Aunt, we started the most racist act on earth. White Australia. Less than 1 year after the Constitution and the Federation was formed, they founded that act. That act went on and, of course, was borrowed by South Africa, borrowed by Argentina, borrowed by all those racist bigots on earth on how to be a bigot. And it's time for us to deal with the bigots, Australia. But with time on the board here and with this beautiful panel in front of me, any other questions? I haven't seen a hand. Yes, thank you. Oh, wait a minute, that's Jagamara. Long time no see, bro. I think I seen you on the block, 1999. Walk it to you, Dad.
Give me a hug.
Walk it to you, Dad.
Always good to see you.
All right, Mr. McLeod over here.
Hello.
You keep talking.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gary Jagamara. I'd like to bow my head to all the speakers here, take my hat off to you all. Everything you said is 100%. We've all been lied to. Only thing we know is what we were told by the invader. But as you know, he or she who writes the history is who or she who wins the war. What they didn't tell you is when the Battle of North and South in America, when America lost its independence, King George II became bankrupt. His son, King George III, inherited the debt. He's the man who sent out Captain Cook to circumnavigate the globe to find a way to pay the debt. By the time they got to Fiji, they didn't know how to circumnavigate this area, never been here. So they negotiated with the king and queen of Fiji. His son wanted to learn how to sail the big ships, made an agreement. They'd teach him English, he'd circumnavigate him around here. After 12 months, he asked the question, why are you here? The answer was, my king, King George III, inherited the debt from his son, King George II, after the Battle of North and South, lost the war. When America won its independence, it was also inherited the debt. That's why they're still under bankruptcy. The son took him to ask him the question after 12 months, spoke English. Why are you here? We inherited a debt. Want to find a way to pay it. Let me take you to New Zealand. New Zealand was registered in New South Wales. Just in case anyone wants to know. When they did Treaty of Waitangi, that didn't happen for no reason. First, it was a Hiwakaputanga Declaration of Independence in New Zealand, 1835. The King of New Zealand had kauri trees. 50 people holding hands to go around the base of one tree. They chopped one down, put it in the water, put a spike in it, took it back to England. Will these pay the debt? How many got? Millions of them. Yes, they paid the debt. Then the King of New Zealand, who actually became the real monarchy. Real monarchy is in New Zealand, not in England. Then the Rothschilds, the trustees said, now you paid the debt, 2,000 tons of gold in Her Majesty's treasuries sitting there. Rather than letting it sit there, grant money incrementally, we would have borrowed out in 2-ton increments to create the new global government system, global trading system, global banking system under 2-ton increments. 2 ton for each under a 40-60 agreement. The 60% are the tribal people who put their land up under joint sovereignty. In order for this here to be built, you need two groups. The people from the land put their hand, that's where we got our king's plates. Wanneroo got all them up, had king's plates, then the mob put their mark. Joint sovereignty, they're a 40% owner. King of New Zealand, 60% owner. Then after that, took 1.5 years to get from here back to New Zealand, or to England and back again. 3 years. In that time, they did the killing times, wiping out all the bloodlines, those who knew about the original agreements. Well, we've actually treated with New Zealand. We treated with the Whakaputanga and the declaration there too. There's He Whakaputanga, New Zealand Treaty, the declaration. Then there is the Declaration of Independence, and then there's Tea Treaty. Tea Treaty is how they brought everything onto our land. So right now the government is actually, or they're actually public servants, because they had the administration for the tribes, who are actually the owners, as the 40% owner. And this is the reason why this whole thing, you have native title. There's actually unextinguished native title is the original thing, 1835. That was supposed to come here. And when they did bring it here, they killed everybody. And when it bought, that information was taken out. And so we were left with the leftovers. But right now we're dealing with, let's just say, the heads of state and those who hold the accounts. So now I'm so glad to hear these up the front there, because after this I'd like to have a conversation with everyone in private. Blessings, everyone. Thanks, Gary.
All right. Now, just conscious of time, we've kept these men here all day. Any other arms in the air? One question remains. We've got time for at least one more. Otherwise, we'll close out. Hey, wait a sec. Where's that finger? Hands. Over there. Thanks, helpers. Thanks, brother.
Hey, guys. Thank you. So this is a bit of a tough question, but I'm an Igorot Kankanai person from the mountains in northern Luzon in the Philippines. And whenever there's talk of succession or more autonomy for Indigenous people up there, it's always seen as rebellion or insurrection, or it's seen as you get quote-unquote red tagged as a communist or a political extremist. And it's really unfortunate, but a lot of my family have been victims of political violence or government assassinations. And so this is a pretty tough question, but do you think that in 2026 we can be truly safe from these sort of threats of political violence?
Yo. Well, it's a great question, brother. It's a bit of a reality, kick in the guts a bit, because we know that as we speak, there are Indigenous peoples around the world who are getting absolutely smashed, and it is over their land and resources and other things. When we talk about sovereignty, who is the sovereign? Ultimately, that's the Creator. So I'm happy to die on that hill, because I know that there's life after this, and as a follower of Yeshua, Jesus, right? So I'm not frightened from those things. And, a simple story I can tell is my son carried a Yidinji identity, and I can only talk for Yidinji area. And the police pulled him up. He was a witness to something, and they asked him what's his name, and he produced an ID card. And that was a Yidinji version. They asked him, do you have any other name? And he said, no, that's the only thing I have. And they left him. They left him be. Now, that's a simple but very powerful story, in that at the age that he was, of 13 or at the time, whatever it was, he experienced that as live, as in he identified it as something that the Queensland Police Service rightfully did not interfere with. And so I can only talk about capacity and who is the sovereign ultimately. Because when you use the Holy Scriptures, is what I like to use. It's good case law, like I said. Romans 13 is really important. Once you have set up a government, it says that all governments have been ordained by God. If you rebel against the government, you're rebelling against God himself. So if the Yidinji nation was to set up a government, which it has, then the logical conclusion is if that the Commonwealth or anyone else rebels against it, they rebel against God.
And it's my firm belief that God protects us, and I can't explain everything as to why people are getting murdered and dispossessed and everything else, but I can only stand here as a living witness that in the last 11 years that my relationship with the boss, Gaba in Yudinji, is the creator, has made it possible for opening the doors for the Yudinji nation. That's the only thing I can give you in a strong sense that I know is true. The spirit world is true. There are two sides. There is evil spirits, old people, and there's bad old people. And I don't know, but I'm sure the majority of people sitting up here will be testament to that. There's good and there's evil. So when we go down this pathway, which is why I keep saying about Charles is not the Yudinji's king. It says that in Deuteronomy. Make sure you choose a king who is your brethren. Do not appoint a foreigner over you to be king. So sorry, Charles, you're not Yudinji. Yudinji, we have our king. These fellows here standing today are in their royal capacity. They are higher than this man-made stuff. This made by God, this made by man. But what has consent to be on the Yudinji territory? This, because the Royal Society of the Yudinji Crown created this. They didn't create Australia, although we would say we have a proprietary restitute of interest in it. That's our property. So it's coming back to that understanding the law and that all persons and things on your territory are your property. If you look at UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, Article 28 says that Indigenous peoples have the right to restitution, compensation for any land that may be occupied, stolen, wrecked, whatever it is. So there is a debtor and a creditor relationship. Set up your government, set up the treasury, start writing and underwriting and watch it appear. In Deuteronomy it says, if my people obey my voice, I will hold them above all nations. They will be the head, not the tail. They will lend but not borrow. So that's where our central banking systems come in, because we want to lend all that money to people, help people in the street. We've got a lot of homeless people in Cairns, Gimoy. So we want to use that money for the good things. So when you talking about these things, you have to believe in it. These people are walking in it. And Auntie there, you know, I knew Matt. He only passed away recently. You know, we wouldn't be here for her, like Auntie Mari and all the other mobs, all your families. Everyone's played their part, even if you don't think you have. You're here today, take that message with you. Self-determination is that. If you don't govern yourself, then you will be governed. Whether it's Australia, whether it's New South Wales. So you need to have a look at that and consider it. That's my biggest message from today. The only thing that is missing here is not the law, because it's here. They are kings. There are queens and kings and royal societies here. What's missing is the royal letters and the patents and the paper to tell the rest of the world we're back and this is who we are and this is how we're going to govern ourselves.
Just a quick answer to your question. We're all at risk. Anybody who stands up, whether it's here in the Philippines or anywhere. But if you look at the BRICS nation, you know, when Gaddafi and all them tried to pull away from the US dollar, they all got killed in their own countries, murdered, right? So it doesn't matter who it is, what power you have, they'll take you out if you're going against the globalist banking system that's controlling this country. Same as the Philippines. But just like the BRICS, they've all joined and set up their own new financial system now. And the West can't take them out because they're standing in unison, right? And that's what we have to do as tribal people across the planet. We've already done a treaty with 110 Filipino bloodline royal families. So we have a treaty with them right now, brother, right? So unity is what's required, because the Philippine tribes on their own, you're no match. The Aboriginal tribes here on their own, we're no match, right? But a minority plus a minority plus a minority makes a majority. And we're calling for a treaty meeting with Indigenous tribes. Well, we haven't. They've actually called us to attend to an international gathering this year where all the tribes of the planet are coming together to treaty as one. So to answer your question is, we're all at risk. A lot of us, many before us and many around us, are very lucky to be alive because of what we push. But you can't hide from the truth. You've got to stand, and I'd rather die standing with the truth than be on my knees failing out of lies, you know. So it's a real thing. There's no answer for it. It's just, we just got to get together, stand together, push through this corporate beast and bring peace and harmony back to Mother Earth, and that's how we see it, brother.
Yeah, you know, like, one would just have to go through my Facebook comments, basically, or my social media comments, and you could see that there's some sort of, like, tension of some sort of crew that could actually do some political violence. But, you know, I think doesn't bother me very much because, one, I live out in the middle of the sticks out of nowhere, and it probably cost them like a few $100s just in fuel just to get out there, and you'd want to be really angry to go and do it, eh? Like, it's going to cost me a couple $100. And so, you know, I guess like having cultural safety is good, you know what I mean? Like having safe spaces for each tribe that, you know, there's Native Title's done a thing where they've pushed all the clan groups all in together, where I'm trying to push for each clan group should have their own little space amongst the whole continent. So then each clan group don't have to fight with another clan group. They got their own little crobbery ground. They got their own little areas where they're teaching their kids. All this stuff they can have themselves, and then they can group up with other clan groups and stuff like that. But if they're made to have to share with other clan groups that they've probably never genetically got along with, they're probably like, screw those guys, you know what I mean? Like, yep, that's it. And so, yep. So then if we all have that same idea and that same law, then everyone has their little space that they can then raise their children in and have a safe space. They can have their own trees and stuff like that that are there. And so everyone gets an equal share of, you know, trying to heal some sort of trauma instead of trying to change a whole system to benefit them and their tribes learning and building back, you know, because a lot of the East Coast mob go try and build back a lot from what's happened. It's like basically like an asteroid hit the East Coast, you know, and it's got to it's building back slowly. And to have that safe space, you know, like where I'm at the moment out in the bush, it's kind of like a safe space that people can come and learn, or people can come and teach me stuff there, and that's what that area is for. So, you know, to avoid those situations with the outside world of people that just, to be honest with you, there's a lot of people out there that just wish that Aboriginal people didn't exist, you know, and unfortunately that's just not going to happen because we refuse to lay down. So it's just like, well, we need to have spaces that, you know, are there for them to learn that culture. So, yeah, to get away from that political violence.
Oh, put your hands together much louder, please, to thank our beautiful panel. And I'd say you are closing out our day in the yarn and tent here. Thanks so much for sharing your stories around sovereignty, actions you're taking to address it. Certainly, you know, just recognise everything we've heard today about be it, practice it, stand up for yourself, represent yourself, and you're as equal to anyone on earth. Oh, we're closing out, huh?
I want to say something. I was sitting up the back there and I didn't hear nothing about our children. I wasn't here. I'm a grandmother, a great-grandmother, and I'm disappointed. I believe in the land and all that, because my family from Alice Springs, I don't know them properly. I'm a stolen generation, taken at 2 years old, and docks. I got my T-shirt there. Right, can you bring my T-shirt here, please?
My name's Rita Wright. My married name, I'm a Shillingsworth. And I'm a Waka from Queensland. And I don't know my family, but I have met so many beautiful people here today. And I'm fighting docs. Because I have 23 grandkids, and I had 15. And number 14 got killed by docs. He was just 7. And you know, I love Australia, I love Queensland, and I am here, I fight. I don't care, I go to Parliament, and I go and give a rip. Because what I say about our children, docs take them. And that is my T-shirt. So you've got to watch out for docs. So I was disappointed sitting up the back there. And I had this, because my grandfather from Canamble, he was 107 when he died. And I never learned, being in the homes, I never learned about the Aboriginal history. But then over the years I learned, because I worked with Charlie Perkins. Yeah, and Dave Shrewsbury. I worked with him in Canberra. And it's about time the government stop taking our children away and give them back. Because I'm going to go on TV and I'm sick of docs taking the kids. And I thank the gentleman talking, but I was disappointed. I'm talking about our children. Because children come first, and that's what keeps us going. And I've been in the homes since I was 2 years old. I lived in the chook pen at Kellyville, out near Parramatta. So you've got to learn the history about our land and about the stolen generation. I was in Cootamundra, Bomaderry, and then I went so-called Christian people. Raped us all in the homes. Been raped since the age of 4. But God keeps me going. And if you don't have God in your heart, nothing will help you. I believe in God because I've been through hell and back. I've been on the other side of the world. I died and come back. So, I'm sorry, gentlemen, but I had to say something about the stolen generation because I'm going this week to fight pig and dogs. I only see my grandkids every month for 2 hours. And that's not enough. Just give us our babies back. Thank you very much, and God bless you. I stop and think about our children.
Thank you, Auntie Reed. Thanks, Auntie Reed. And just acknowledge, in the Black Caucus we spoke about deaths in custody and our kids and the institutionalism. That's it, Aunt. My mum's a Cooter girl, Aunt. I'm Wilma's son. You're with my mum. I know, you're with my mother. Marion, my mum's Wilma, Moore and Holton. You were, roommates. For those who aren't aware, this is the home where they removed our kids. It happened here in New South Wales. Big love and respects that it was here the Stolen Generations inquiry was handed down in the 90s. It was people like Auntie Reed from the Cootamundra girls, the Kinchela men, they got a bus over there. Bomaderry, she mentioned our children. These are the institutions that really were bred to remove us, enslave us. But I'm so thankful that, you still got Cooter girls, Kinchela men, Bomaderry children around to remind people, and we share the story of every other state and territory who've had the same damn model on them to remove us, to whitewash us, as we say where I'm from in Kempsey. We ain't going to be whitewashed. We're going to remain. We'll keep our dignity and our respect. We'll learn ways to operate into the future. But Aunt's right. Right now, if you're not aware, more kids get removed today. Docs is an industry, for those of you in the last session. Jails and docs are making more money out of the budget now than what social programs are. So call everyone, black, white or brindle. Ask government, why are you spending so much money in locking kids up, taking kids, locking up adults? Why don't you spend that money on maybe the community, social programs, or what you heard today, country or the environment? So it's time to say where I'm from. We say Yakai where I'm from. Some of me mob over the mountains, and we talked about it earlier, cultural cousins. Well, the bear eaters say Yalu. Hello, my Gamilaroi mob. Us Yakais on the coast, that's the way of saying we'll see you when we're looking at you. I know a German came to my valley. Kempsey's a German valley. They taught us Arvidasin. Same meaning. See you when we're looking at you. Thank you.